I swear to you all, this promise has just joined the club for a few seconds, and immediately punched his roommate so hard that even his parents didn't recognize him. It was because of this act of loving his colleagues that the prison warden beat him to a pulp. But seconds later, the warden apologized profusely, because he is a top-secret government agent sent to this prison to go undercover and infiltrate the demon race to gather intelligence. And the target he is aiming at is this beautiful, fully loaded girl. But don't let her beautiful appearance fool you. She is extremely dangerous. A few days ago, she sent a high-ranking diplomatic official of the human race to see his ancestors to increase her prestige. The government implanted the most advanced technology in his body, allowing him to impersonate and possess the demon race's overpowered abilities. With his A-list acting skills and superior handcuff unlocking techniques, he won her trust, and successfully infiltrated the demon race. Oh Van K, I swear to you I won't be long-winded anymore. So let's get started. A girl with a hot body is tied up on top of the operating table. The girl's short, turquoise hair stands out more with the strange animal ears on her head. A metal device is worn on her mouth, causing her mouth to be forced open wide, which looks very painful. The beast girl frowned, breathing heavily. Her mouth could not speak a word, only making whimpering sounds. She stared intently at the people wearing doctor's clothes. They wore masks covering their faces, seemingly busy discussing something. From another room, separated by a glass wall, there were people wearing soldiers' uniforms talking to a doctor. The man, who appeared to be the leader, said, I heard that new techniques are being used this time. The doctor said, that's right, Warden. The doctor pointed to a carefully sealed box, and said it was a new GU worm researched by the Heavenly Star Pavilion. It is said to be able to cause confusion in the demon race's consciousness and thinking. A doctor wearing white gloves pressed the button on the sealed box. The box slowly opened. Inside there was a GU worm carefully wrapped in a vial. This doctor held the vial containing the GU worm and approached the tied-up girl. The girl sensed the danger and struggled immediately, but could not make any sound other than whimpering sounds in her throat. The warden smirked and said, his eyes revealed a sinister look, let's just wait and see. On this side, the person holding the vial of GU worm directly poured it into the girl's mouth. The girl widened her eyes in shock, but she had absolutely no power to resist. The GU worm successfully crawled into her body. Sensing that the GU worm had crawled into her body, she screamed in despair. The demon girl convulsed violently at this moment. Her whole body trembled, making painful whimpering sounds, and her face turned pale. After a period of violent struggling, the girl finally fell silent. The sounds she made became weaker and weaker. The person who poured the GU worm into the girl's mouth turned to report to the warden, it seems to be working. The warden said, listen to what she's saying. The doctor also respectfully obeyed. He carefully approached and removed the metal device attached to the girl's mouth. Her eyes were blurred, as if she was no longer aware of the things around her. She seemed to be making small noises. Because he couldn't hear clearly, the doctor put his ear close to her mouth, mumbling, I can't hear clearly, I'll get closer. Let me try. But the moment the doctor got closer to her, an accident suddenly happened. Her blurred eyes became clearer. It seemed like consciousness had returned. She lunged forward and bit the doctor's neck. Fresh blood gushed out like a spring. The doctor had absolutely no chance to fight back. Those around him, seeing the complicated situation, immediately grabbed their weapons and rushed forward. Some tried to pull the bitten doctor away. Some tried to control the girl with weapons. Another person hugged the body of the bitten doctor. Panicked, he exclaimed, he's dead. The girl's eyes had completely changed at this moment. Her eyes lit up, filled with ferocity and danger. Despite the weapons pointed at her neck, she showed no fear at all. She laughed maniacally. She stared madly at the warden standing in another room, separated by a glass wall. She stuck out her tongue and licked the blood on her mouth, looking at him defiantly. The warden looked a little worried. He said in a low voice, failed again. I'm too strong. It must be a big shot of the demon race locked in the cell before. We can now implement Plan B. Fate always likes to play tricks on people like this. The event just now caused a commotion throughout the prison camp. The lights came on and shouts rang out everywhere. Pay attention, there is a vehicle moving into the area. Good warning. Pay attention, there is a vehicle moving into the area. 2. I have no other choice. On the transport vehicle entering the prison, a young man is being escorted to his place of confinement. His eyes were sad. His face was a little haggard. In the cramped, dilapidated car, he was escorted together with a beastman. This one seems to be a cow hybrid. His body was red, and his head was completely in the shape of a bull's head. He glared fiercely at the young man and growled, "Hey, kid." He laughed mockingly and said, "What kind of demon are you? A rat or a duck? Transform into your true form and let me see. The human form makes me want to vomit." The young man did not seem afraid at all. He just looked at him indifferently. Just this one look drove the bull crazy. "What's with that look in your eyes? I'm asking you, are you mute?" The young man was not angry. He calmly explained, "Thief. I stole from a human official's house." The bull snorted, "Damn it. What a disgrace." He rushed up fiercely, wanting to show off his power to the young man. "Look at your appearance. How is it? Do you crave the life of the human race so much? Do you feel like you've really become a human when you cowardly run to their side to make a living?" The other beastmen heard this and were very pleased, joining in and saying, "Well said." There were both humans and demons in the car, but there seemed to be more demons. A snake man said with a smile, "A demon should have the appearance of a demon." As soon as these words were spoken, the beastmen began to look at a person who had the appearance of a human. They looked at him with threatening eyes. There was nothing else he could do. He had to transform back into his true form. It turned out he was a pig man. The other beastmen laughed and mocked him. The bull, who had been encouraged, became even more arrogant. "What a pity. No matter how much you look like a human on the outside, you're still locked up here, you thief." After cursing at him, he didn't forget to humiliate him by spitting on his shoes. The young man's eyes changed slightly. They seemed colder. He stared at the spot that had just been dirted by the bull, then he looked up at him and said in a low voice, "It seems you really want to find pleasure by humiliating me to satisfy your dwindling self-esteem. The tattoo on your neck is the Holy Glory Society, right? Venerating and preserving the eating habits and customs of the demon race. Unfortunately, you are also captured by humans. No matter how much you look down on me, you are the same as me, both prisoners of humans." As he spoke, he pointed to the arm and leg restraints that bound everyone here. This angered the bull. He rushed forward aggressively, wanting to attack the young man. He shouted, "What did you say?" But the young man was not afraid at all. He just watched him intently. Then, there was a loud bang. No one knew what had happened in the transport vehicle after that bang. They only knew that the vehicle successfully arrived at the concentrated demon race prison camp on Immortal Martial Kingdom's prison island. Standing and waiting for the vehicle was a row of soldiers armed with weapons. The scene was extremely solemn. The vehicle approached and stopped in front of the welcoming soldiers. Leading that group of soldiers was Warden Jiaoshan. It was raining heavily. He leisurely walked under the umbrella, approaching the truck. He held a list and shouted, "Everyone! All inmates get out of the car." The first one to put a foot down was the young man who had clashed with Red Bull. He carefully looked around, rainwater soaking his coat. At this time, all the inmates in the car had lined up in a row. However, the figure of Red Bull was nowhere to be seen. The warden found this strange and turned to ask the soldier, "There are 10 people on the list, why are there only 9 here?" Hearing this, the soldier went into the car to check, but then he discovered in panic. He exclaimed, "Report, there is still one prisoner in the car, but he has been knocked unconscious." Red Bull, who knows when, had his face beaten into a distorted shape, lying lifelessly on the ground, unable to get up. The chief warden's face darkened, and he asked in a low voice, "Who did it?" He went to a green goblin and asked, "Was it you?" Making the goblin sweat profusely. He secretly glanced to the side, then he turned to the snakehead and asked, "Was it you?" The snakehead also startled. He hurriedly explained, "It wasn't me, it was the kid at the end." He pointed to the young man in white. The chief warden looked towards the young man. He pushed up his glasses and gave a strange smile. The young man just stood there, the rain still pouring down on him, dripping wet. He didn't seem to care much about what was happening around him, just silently bowing his head. The warden went in front of him and stared at him. He looked up to face him. The warden stared at the young man and asked in a low voice, "Name?" The young man calmly replied, "CNGTRCSIs, La Lan." The warden grinned. He repeated his words, "La Lan." He pressed his gaunt face towards him and said, "You don't seem as smelly as the others, but I don't like stubborn people. Do you know what the crime is for hitting other prisoners?" The young man involuntarily stepped back slightly. His eyes flashed with disgust. "Sir, I was just acting in self-defense." The warden seemed very interested in him. He asked again, "Is that so?" Then, without saying another word, he swung his hand and punched La Lan hard in the stomach. La Lan didn't have time to react and could only take the punch, crying out loudly in pain. La Lan clutched his stomach and fell to the ground, while the warden looked at him triumphantly. "Don't argue, this is my top priority." At this moment, La Lan raised his face. His face contorted and his teeth showed fangs. He roared. 2 cat ears had grown on La Lan's head. Before he could counterattack, other soldiers behind him pointed their guns at him. La Lan cautiously stopped his movements. The warden continued, "From now on, you will be my slaves. In this place, you can only obey me. If anyone doesn't know their place, I will break their head." These words were spoken to La Lan, but also to the other demon races. They could only bow their heads in fear and listen. The warden looked at the list. He read aloud, "La Lan committed the crime of theft in the territory of the Xinwu Kingdom, sentenced to life imprisonment. During the time of imprisonment, assaulted another prisoner, sentenced to 7 days of confinement, to be carried out immediately." La Lan had now returned to his human form. He just walked silently, looking at the warden without saying anything more. The soldiers began to shout, "Move it, line up." The demon race prisoners also silently followed the instructions. The warden said again, "You demon beasts, when you come to this place, you must obediently work. Don't have other intentions. Say goodbye to freedom." Then he turned to look at Lao Lan again, also, "Welcome to hell." The hell he was talking about here was the gate that these demon races had just entered. The gate leading to the demon race concentration camp on the prison island of Shinwu Kingdom. Lao Lan turned his head and looked back. Behind him was the image of the city sparkling in the rain. He sadly thought to himself that he could not turn back. The soldiers kept urging, "Hurry up, don't dawdle, hurry up." The warden suddenly said, "Lao Lan, get out of the line." The soldiers began to grab him, "Come here." The warden said, "The confinement cell is this way. That's your favorite place." Lao Lan was escorted to the confinement cell by the soldiers. The demon racers who had teamed up to bully him earlier now looked at each other worriedly when they saw him entering the confinement cell. "It's over, swallow it into the confinement cell, only half a life is left when you come out." Another said, "Half a life. It's good to be able to survive." While they were fussing, a soldier shouted, "Stop looking, move it." Lao Lan was escorted to an elevator. The surrounding scenery looked really scary. This atmosphere is not ordinary, extremely strange. The warden snatched Lao Lan from the soldiers and ordered, "You guys go to work." The soldiers quickly obeyed the order and left in the elevator. The warden pressed floor -9 and the elevator plunged down quickly. Lao Lan stood behind the warden and could only silently bow his head, not knowing what was waiting for him. Lao Lan looked around and then looked at the warden. He slowly said, "Actually, there is no one else here, you don't need to strain so much." At this time, the warden suddenly deflated like a ball with no air. He sighed with relief and his face was a bit more haggard, but this appearance made Lao Lan startled. The warden laughed loudly, but his face was sweating. He turned to look at Lao Lan and asked, "Specialist La, am I coordinating well?" The warden seemed to have completely changed his attitude. He said enthusiastically, "I received a call from the Secret Service, that is to start preparing. In the future, if you have a chance, please say a few good words for me with Lam Lao Dai." But this change in face also made Lao Lan a little confused. He thumbs up. Unexpectedly he took advantage of the fight with the prisoner to enter the confinement cell smoothly. "How did you know that person would attack you?" Lao Lan calmly explained, "Actually, it was a coincidence. I saw the XM Holy Glory Society symbol on his body. It is an extremist organization that respects the glory of the demon race, so I found an opportunity to sit in front of him. They hate the most those clansmen who give up the characteristics of the demon race, so how can they bear not to hit me?" The warden couldn't help but sigh when he heard this. He clapped his hands, "Specialist, you are different. My admiration for you is surging like a continuous flood." Then he bowed his head 90 degrees, "Specialist, the punch I hit you earlier really scared me." Lola remembered what happened earlier. He carefully lifted his shirt to look at where he was hit. There was a star-shaped scar with many wings where he was hit. The warden's eyes widened and he exclaimed, "According to my acquaintances in the capital, that is the 5th generation technology. All intelligence officers in the Demon Kingdom must undergo this. Demon core transplantation surgery must remove the demon core from the demon race prisoners to transplant into the human body. It is said that the rejection reaction has been reduced by 30%, but it is still very dangerous. This is the first time I've seen it, so that's what caused this scar to be implanted in the human body." Lao Lan cupped his hand to his mouth and coughed a few times, embarrassedly saying, "Chief Warden, please stop your actions." The Chief Warden seemed a little too interested in the scar on Lao Lan's stomach and unabashedly touched it, causing Lao Lan a lot of embarrassment. The Chief Warden was reminded and immediately turned his face away, apologizing to the specialist. La Kim Long couldn't stand it, and Lao Lan embarrassedly pulled his shirt down to cover the scar and said, "Let's talk about the target I have to approach." Lao Lan was talking about the main task at this time. "Although I have read the data, I still want to hear your thoughts." The elevator was still slowly going down. The warden explained, "That person was caught by your Secret Service and sent to my place for detention to better coordinate the action with you, so I don't know much about its background. I can only say that it is quite a headache." Then the warden gave a mysterious smile. "You'll understand when you meet it." "How should I say it? It's a bit hot." Lao Lan repeated in confusion, "Hot." The elevator also stopped at floor -9 at this time. The warden said again, "Specialist La, I really admire someone like you who dances on the tip of a knife. You must succeed. The courage of Shinwu Kingdom will always be with you." Lao Lan was confused, thinking to himself for Shinwu Kingdom, why the elevator opened in front of him was a long corridor, with small prison cells on both sides. 2 soldiers guarding this corridor respectfully greeted when they saw the warden. "Hello, Chief Warden." Deafening roars came from the corridor. The soldiers kept shouting, "Be quiet, damn it, be quiet." Shinwu Kingdom was founded by humans and Demon Kingdom was founded by demon races, and for thousands of years they have always hoped to completely eliminate each other. The prison cells in this corridor contained fierce demon races. When they saw La Lan, they were like tigers seeing their prey. Kid, why are you here? Not only that, but they kept roaring, making La Lan wary. For the victory of the war, both sides sent a series of spies to infiltrate. As for me, I was unintentionally forced to get involved with the secret service of the Shinwu Kingdom. After undergoing special training, I became a spy. They promised me that I could be free if I completed this mission. Freedom. Mentioning these two words, Luo Lan suddenly thought of his small family. It was an orphanage, a place of warm sunshine, where children's laughter could be heard, a place with familiar and loving faces. They brought Luo Lan to a cell numbered 621. The warden said excitedly, "Here he is. Ming, I hope you'll still be alive in 7 days." He turned the doorknob and opened the door. "Go in. The first step of the mission is to gain this girl's trust." Luo Lan's eyes became more determined as he looked at the person chained in the corner of the room. That was the target he had to conquer. A demon girl with green hair, fair skin, and a slender figure. This was the person he had to conquer to obtain the freedom he longed for. No one knows when humans and demons began to become enemies. I'm afraid no one remembers that demons rely on the demon core in their bodies and are born with extraordinary power. In the beginning, the human race was almost wiped out until a great sage appeared among the humans, comprehended the acupoints in the human body, and mastered the Dharma secret aperture. From then on, the human race possessed the power to resist the demons and continued to develop, expand, and establish the Shinwu Empire. A civilization that always goes to any lengths to eliminate another civilization. The war has continued to this day. Many people have died. As a spy planted in the Demon Kingdom, will I become the next price to be sacrificed? Luo Lan thought to himself. Luo Lan stood in front of the demon girl who was chained up. He carefully looked at and assessed her. This demon girl in front of me is my mission target. At this moment, the demon girl also opened her eyes and stared at Luo Lan. This demon girl's name is Bai Ling and she comes from Qingqiu. Luo Lan thought to himself that she looked fragile and weak, but he knew she was very dangerous. Luo Lan recalled the instructions from his superiors. Luo Lan, this mission is of great significance. This is the information about the mission target. What you need to do is gain her trust and then infiltrate the demon race. That's what his superiors told Luo Lan. This person added, 3 months ago, she infiltrated the empire and assassinated one of our diplomatic officials, but we also obtained intelligence and caught her. According to our investigation, the target comes from the Fox clan in Qingqiu Demon Kingdom, and her identity is not low, and her abilities are very strong. We lost quite a few people when we caught her. So the danger level of this demon is level A, and you must not be careless. Luo Lan held the file containing Bai Ling's information. The messenger continued, Luo Lan, we will arrange for you and her to meet. You just need to follow the plan. This person also emphasized, don't let down the country's trust in you for the continuation of the human race. But Luo Lan didn't think so much. He coldly looked at the person in front of him and affirmed, I'm only doing it for myself. I hope that if I complete the mission, you will keep your promise. Luo Lan. While looking at the demon race in front of him and recalling the details of his mission, the warden, with a handkerchief over his nose and a wrinkled face, said, damn it. This place always has the stench of animals. When will my life as a farm owner end? Luo Lan then exclaimed, where is this place? It seems it's not just a simple prison cell. He began his act, and the warden smiled evilly, that's right. Indeed, this should be called an experimental base established specifically to deal with you. Luo Lan looked flustered and suspiciously asked, an experimental base? All of these developments were captured by Bai Ling's eyes. Luo Lan asked, has the human race always used the demon race as experiments in this place? At this moment, Bai Ling suddenly spoke, don't be complacent. Her eyes were filled with anger, and she said heroically, what the people once did to us, we will repay you 100,000 times over. The warden's expression changed, and he stared at Bai Ling and said, do you know what you're saying? Then he sneered at her, when you enter this place, you have to learn to obey. He walked to the switch and placed his hand on it, saying, no one can defy me. As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled the switch down. The switch seemed to be connected to a mechanism linked to the chains on Bai Ling's hands. The moment he pulled the switch down, Bai Ling's hands were quickly pulled up. She cried out in pain, Lola. Looking at the scene just now, he frowned, while the warden was getting closer to Bai Ling. The warden slowly pulled out the baton from his belt and aimed it at Bai Ling's stomach. Bai Ling was hit by the baton, she frowned in pain, screamed, and spat out a mouthful of saliva. Seeming not satisfied yet, he grabbed Bai Ling's hair, pointed the baton at her face and said, ha ha. Looking at you up close, you're quite beautiful. Although you're a beast, if possible, let me entertain myself. The warden was now staring at Bai Ling's alluring body. His eyes gradually darkened. Her voluptuous body, although of the demon race, was extremely alluring, and this gaze made Luolan feel confused. What does he want to do? The warden started to get restless, and he used the baton to grope Bai Ling's body. These legs are so fair. What is your true form? He took the opportunity to advance, frantically groping her body with the baton and asking, do you have a tail, Bai Ling? Although she felt uncomfortable and wanted to bite the beast in front of her to death, her hands were chained and her body was completely unable to resist. She could only try to stop the sweat from pouring out like a bath. But then a righteous hand appeared, stopping the warden's actions. Luolan stared at the warden, holding his wrist, his eyes seeming to ask what he wanted to do. Luolan's actions surprised the warden. Luolan sternly looked at the warden and said, you humans boast about being a civilized nation, but you treat demon prisoners like this. Then what difference is there between you and us? The warden laughed cruelly, staring at Luolan and asking, are you threatening me? This statement made Luolan a little annoyed. Luolan said again, I just don't hope you cause unnecessary trouble. The officer should keep a distance from demon race criminals like us. Otherwise, this place is crowded and complicated. I'm afraid it will affect the adult's future promotion. These words were clearly Luolan seriously talking to the head warden, not just acting. Bai Ling stared at the two people in front of her, her eyes complex, not knowing what she was thinking. Luolan whispered in the warden's ear, the big officials in the capital don't like head wardens who are obscene towards demon women for fun. If this despicable matter carelessly reaches their ears, wouldn't the adult be locked up in this place for life? Luolan's words seemed to awaken the warden. He thought to himself, damn it, how careless. The big officials in the capital always consider themselves to be lofty scholars. Me playing with the demon woman here. I'm afraid my path to officialdom will end. Just thinking about this made him sweat profusely. He silently looked towards Luolan, secretly feeling grateful for the special envoy. Truly my benefactor. Young but already understands the path to officialdom. Just so happened to awaken me. The future of the special envoy is truly bright. He looked at Luolan with sparkling admiring eyes. The gratitude could not be concealed. Bai Ling silently stared towards the two, not knowing if she noticed something unusual or not. The warden was now more sober. But he still said proudly, although what you said just now is right, but after all, she offended me. I can't let her off easily. Luolan looked at Bai Ling with a complicated expression, wondering what to do. Then he turned to the head warden and said, if you are still angry, I am willing to take her place. The warden looked over with a smug look, take her place. HMPH. Then without saying a word, he used the baton and struck Luolan's face. He shouted, then I'll give you a chance. Luolan fell to the ground from the hit. He held his painful face. The warden still didn't stop. He smirked, then said to the two soldiers nearby, beat him. The two soldiers received the order, rushed in, punching and kicking. Luolan could only hold his face, lying on the ground, silently taking the beating. Bai Ling started to get a little worried. The scene before her was really not a pretty sight. One of the two soldiers started to pull out the baton. He raised it, striking a blow on the top of Luolan's head, catching Luolan off guard. Luolan spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes had lost focus. The front turned dark. After Luolan was knocked to the ground, they left satisfied. The heavy iron door closed, leaving Luolan and Bai Ling in the prison cell. Outside in the corridor, the warden said to the two guards, you must keep a close watch on this kid. He escaped from the North prison before. He seems to have some skills. If he runs away, I won't be lenient with you. Luolan's head was hit. His face is covered in wounds and is still lying on the ground with his eyes closed. Bai Ling, her hands still tied, looks down at Luolan. She shouts, hey, are you still alive? She doesn't get a response. She calls out again, hey, but Luolan remains motionless. Bai Ling now looks worried. She's sweating. He's not dead from the beating, is he? So eager to show off. Who needed his help? Then she sits up, trying to stretch her legs, trying to reach Luolan. She grimaces. She shouts, hey, wake up. I don't want to owe you any favors. As she speaks, she rubs Luolan's head with her foot. Luolan's eyes remain closed. It's unknown if he hears Bai Ling's call. In a daze, he seems to hear someone calling his name. Luolan has fallen into a dream. He hears someone calling his name. When he opens his eyes, he's sitting on a strange chair. A blinding light shines directly into his eyes. Luolan frowns, closes his eyes and raises his hand in front of his face, trying to block the blinding light. Someone is sitting opposite him. This person says, we represent the Special Operations Team under the Secret Service, and want to talk to you. You've been chosen for a mission. You must carry out a special task. You have no choice but to agree. A pink-haired girl, wearing a black kyongsam with red rose patterns appears. Pink hair, blue eyes, she smiles and says, after the mission is successful, everything you did before will be forgiven. You will embrace a new life. In the back, a little girl is calling out, "Brother La Lan," and this voice startles La Lan. He turns his head in shock to look behind him. It's a cute little girl with golden eyes. Her hair is tied in 2 brown buns. She's wearing a green dress. She looks very refreshing. She smiles at La Lan and says, "Brother La Lan, today is my birthday. Remember to buy a chocolate cake." From behind, the little girl, a hand with sharp claws is reaching towards her. La Lan panics and shouts, "Xiao Meng, Meng, be careful." The pink-haired woman from before is standing behind Xiao Meng. She hugs the little girl, gives a cold smile and says, "La Lan, you must complete the mission, so that your family can survive. Otherwise, they will be executed for your involvement, because your family has to work for us." La Lan rushes forward, seemingly wanting to reach Xiao Meng. He shouts, "HNGHAAA," as if just experienced a nightmare. La Lan wakes up in terror. He exclaims, "Ah," and Bai Ling is startled. She exclaims, "Ah," staring intently at La Lan. La Lan turns his head. He rubs the spot on his hair that Bai Ling stepped on with her foot, looking a little unhappy. Bai Ling is embarrassed, her face flushed. She can only stare at La Lan, and her sitting posture now is a bit suggestive. La Lan turns his head away in embarrassment upon seeing that. La Lan's expression also makes Bai Ling flustered. Neither dares to look each other in the eye. Bai Ling lowers her head. She says softly, "Ah, well, it seems like you had a bad dream." La Lan also lowers his head and replies, "That's right. It seemed like a bad dream." Then La Lan slowly stands up. He turns his head and says, "But I guess no one who comes here has good dreams." La Lan points to the wounds on his body. "Considering I took a beating for you, shouldn't you introduce yourself?" Bai Ling is a little angry, scoffing self-righteously, "I didn't tell you to help me, and you even fainted. It's a disgrace." La Lan is a bit speechless, saying, "Hey, I just helped you. If I hadn't stepped in." Before La Lan could finish his sentence, Bai Ling interrupts, "Hey, you said my name is Bai Ling. What about you? Who are you?" La Lan smiles, pointing to himself and introducing, "La Lan. You can call me La Lan. I'm just a nameless nobody." Bai Ling says again, "I heard them say you escaped from prison." La Lan is a little surprised. He remembers and explains, "Escaped from prison. It's true that I escaped from my home, Green Island in the north. It's a pity I was caught soon after." Bai Ling's eyes widen in surprise. "I've heard of Green Island Prison. It's extremely heavily guarded there. How did you escape?" La Lan now looks at Bai Ling with a wary gaze. "You want to trick me, then report me to the warden." This statement angers Bai Ling. She shouts, "Report you my ass. I am a warrior of the Qingqiu tribe. How could I be in the same boat as the human race? I'd kick you to death." La Lan rubs his chin, as if he has obtained the information he wanted to know. "So you're a fox spirit from Qingqiu. Aha, so you're the greatest warrior of your tribe. Based on you." Bai Ling's eyes become angry. "What's with that look on your face? If you dare to unlock me, let's see if I can kill you. Do you know how many people died trying to capture me? If I weren't handcuffed, I could break down this prison. Do you believe it?" And the aura and attitude emanating from Bai Ling successfully frighten La Lan. He raises both hands in a gesture of surrender and retreats, saying, Okay, don't get excited. I shouldn't doubt your glory. Too much killing intent. I'm just a little wary." Then he calmly continues, "Anyway, male and female demons are locked up together. I just feel like there's a conspiracy, worrying that they want to seduce me." Bai Ling says softly again, "You're thinking too much. In their eyes, we are just a bunch of uncultured beasts. Like raising livestock, what does it matter if they are thrown together? Green Island Prison wasn't like this." Why did La Lan recall his time at Green Island and then answer Bai Ling's question, somewhat embarrassed, saying, "Well, of course. It's just that there's no one as beautiful as you there. If you've dispelled my worries, then I'll show you." Bai Ling hears this and raises her beautiful eyes, wary. Her eyes widen, seemingly very surprised by what she just saw. Damn. With a thud, the heavy iron bracelet on La Lan's wrist has been easily removed and falls to the ground. Bai Ling gapes, astonished. She stutters, You, how did you do that? This type of handcuff is made to deal with the demon race, so they can't use their demon powers." La Lan smugly takes out a bent needle. He explains gently, "Of course, I can't use the power of my demon core. I use this. It's a metal thing that looks like a needle but has many bright and shiny bends." Bai Ling curiously looks at the thing in La Lan's hand, asking, "What is that?" La Lan is smug again, saying, "A type of lock-picking tool that I invented myself. It can also be used to pick my teeth on normal days." Bai Ling still doesn't seem to believe her eyes. She asks again, "You used this tiny thing to open the lock?" La Lan squats down in front of Bai Ling, saying gently, "What else?" He picks up the heavy lock and says, "This lock isn't as complicated as you think. The more advanced the technology, the easier it is. The locks in Green Island Prison are much more complicated, but I could still open them. I'm in the Xinwu Kingdom Bao, and I've been working as a thief to make a living this year. Oh, I've opened so many locks, some are much more complicated than this. This doesn't pose any difficulty for me. Bai Ling glances away and snorts loudly, HMPH, so you're a thief. La Lan sees Bai Ling's attitude and corrects her, corrected a little, a master thief. Bai Ling still squints at him, looking disrespectful. Then how did you bring that thing in here? You have to go through a scanner in here. La Lan smiles again, simple. Take a good look. He held both ends of the metal rod and said, don't blink. In the blink of an eye, he clapped his hands together, and the metal rod in the middle suddenly disappeared completely, no longer on La Lan's hand. The small magic trick just now made Bai Ling even more interested, and she exclaimed, too fast, where did it go? Where did you hide it? Hearing her ask, La Lan reached out to Bai Ling. Bai Ling was a little wary, she blushed, and shouted, what are you doing? Don't mess around, I'll bite you to death. But La Lan calmly put his hand into Bai Ling's hair, and then from behind Bai Ling's ear, La Lan took out the metal rod from before. In a stunned gaze, La Lan said, don't worry, I'm just taking something off of you. Bai Ling looked towards the back of her ear and wondered, how did you do that? I didn't expect you could hide it on me. La Lan slowly explained, taking advantage of you focusing on my hands like that, you won't have time to feel the changes on your body. In the moment I opened my hands, I could shoot it to any position I wanted. It's that simple. The more Bai Ling listened, the more disbelieving she looked. You put it there that way? Yes, we just need to hide the tool on the guard before the security check. After successfully passing the inspection, La Lan will easily retrieve his things. Bai Ling asked again, are you sure the guards won't be checked? La Lan stretched out and exclaimed, oops. He looked down at Bai Ling and reached out to support the back of his neck, not sure, so I put it on the warden. Bai Ling seemed to have sensed the complexity of the person in front of her. She asked in a low voice, so what do you want to do next? La Lan replied, this. You are loud. Of course, it's leaving this ghostly place. Bai Ling asked in surprise, do you have a way to leave this place? La Lan chuckled, listen to you. He confidently looked at Bai Ling and declared, if I could escape from the Green Island prison, then I can escape from this place. La Lan stood up, picked up the heavy handcuffs and said, I can't stand being locked up here, becoming a test subject. If I must die, then I want to die on the run. Bai Ling continued to inquire, so you already have a plan? La Lan did not hesitate to share with her, that's right, there is a plan. But this plan needs to find a strong assistant. Do those locked up outside have a powerful character, that is, the kind of great demon with profound cultivation? Bai Ling, without any hesitation, eagerly said after hearing La Lan's question, I am the kind of demon you mentioned. But La Lan pretended to look down on her. You asked her again. Being looked down upon made Bai Ling extremely irritated and angry. She twisted her face into a distorted smile, saying it seems you don't even know what the Harjan title of the Qingqiu clan means, huh? Open my shackles and I'll show you the fear that I brought to the nation. La Lan frowned. He thought to himself, she's mistaken, Qingqiu Bai Ling. I knew about your abilities long ago. He looks at the hands shackled by iron chains. I know very well opening the shackles for you is the same as releasing a monster. Perhaps you are just probing me. The moment the shackles are opened, you will kill me immediately. Bai Ling was completely unaware that La Lan was actively assessing her. Increasingly excited, she said, do it, open it up, release my shackles, and I'll lead you out of this place. La Lan narrowed his eyes, thinking to himself, the hand holding the small metal rod was a little hesitant. But for the sake of the mission, I have no other choice. Outside, it was still raining heavily. In the warden's room, the lights were still on. He sat in the room, talking on the phone to someone. Yes, I understand, you have been arranged in there already. Cooperate, definitely cooperate, please rest assured, sir. Oh, do we have to go that far? All right, rest assured, I guarantee the completion of the mission. He hung up the phone, a wicked smile on his face. Specialist, La Lan, we have to cooperate well together. At this time, in the prison cell, La Lan had opened the shackles for Bai Ling. A vicious voice called his name, La Lan. La Lan panicked and fell to the floor, his face pale. He stammered, you, his mouth with sharp teeth, breathing heavily. Bai Ling had now transformed into an extremely vicious entity. Ears poked up high, eyes pitch black, mouth full of sharp fangs. She growled, saying she didn't expect you to have this ability. The feeling of freedom is great. La Lan looked in horror at the thing in front of him, thinking to himself, it's more terrifying than what's written in the files. This feeling of oppression is on par with that evil woman. Secret Intelligence Department. But then Bai Ling seemed to be attracted by something else. She looked around, not attacking La Lan as La Lan had thought. La Lan stared intently at Bai Ling, not daring to miss any of her movements. It seems that the situation is a bit out of control. He worried, thinking to himself, this is also what he was most worried about. Although the Secret Intelligence Department has arranged everything properly, there is one thing that cannot be controlled. Bai Ling hugged her arms and shouted, smells bad. But this is the scent of freedom. What La Lan was worried about was the true nature of this demoness. Intelligence shows that Qingqiu Bailing had previously operated on the front lines of the battlefield. The prisoner was arrested for the first time and has not been detained for long. It's easiest to gain her trust, but her strength exceeds my data, and her personality is not easy to grasp. While La Lan was still lost in thought, Bailing was busy enjoying the freedom she couldn't fail. The Secret Intelligence Department won't spare me. The figure of the pink-haired woman clung to La Lan again. She whispered in his ear, La Lan, in the Secret Intelligence Department, a defeated dog has only one ending. For everything you cherish, survive, and then go to any lengths to enter the center of the demon race. When I need you, you will be the sharpest knife plunged into their hearts. La Lan lowered his face. The plan cannot deviate. Everything must be within my control. Bai Ling looked curiously at La Lan. That gaze scared La Lan to death. Then suddenly, Bai Ling pounced. She jumped right onto La Lan. La Lan confusedly exclaimed, "Her!" Bai Ling ran her sharp claws all over La Lan's body. She said, "She almost forgot about you. After all, who are you? What religion do you belong to? I didn't expect you to have such superb unlocking skills." There was a change in La Lan's eyes. The color in his eyes gradually turned green. He shouted, "Ah! La Lan, so you are a demon race, be honest and report." "I come from the Liaolan tribe in the west. The unlocking technique was learned from a Wu Kingdom artisan. Unfortunately, that artisan died early, so I was stealing to survive in the Wu Kingdom." Bai Ling still looked at La Lan viciously and inquired, "Then, why didn't you lie to me?" This distance made La Lan unable to stop trembling. Your eyes cannot hide your fear." He stammered, Bai Ling. Looking up at La Lan, her restless hands groped over his firm chest. She gave a teasing smile, his heart beating too fast, faster. La Lan's face was pale at this time, unable to hide the fear in his eyes. Suddenly, Bai Ling raised her head. She exclaimed, "Oops." She sat up straight, looked around and said, "Talking to you made me forget the main thing. I want revenge." This sentence startled La Lan a little. Bai Ling gave a fierce look to La Lan and said, "That warden dared to treat me like that. I must tear him apart." La Lan panicked. "No." He exclaimed, "Don't." In his head, he thought, what kind of main thing is this? La Lan's attitude made Bai Ling a little suspicious. She frowned at La Lan. La Lan was afraid of saying the wrong thing, so he could only look away. The boy's body continued to tremble as he explained, "The most important thing for us now is to escape from here. There will be a chance for revenge later." Bai Ling still didn't let go of her suspicious gaze. She stared at La Lan, but then, as if she had thought something through, she slowly said, "What you said makes sense. I can't stay in this place for another second." Then she stood up, left La Lan and went to the iron door. "So tell me, how should we get out? Do you already have a plan?" La Lan finally regained his senses. He also slowly stood up, looked at Bai Ling and said, "Actually, my plan needs the warden." Hearing the warden's name, Bai Ling turned sharply around, glaring back, looking at La Lan suspiciously. "Oh, tell me about it." La Lan pointed in one direction and explained, "Look over there." Bai Ling was curious, "Aren't those just some pipes? What does it have to do with your plan?" La Lan looked at Bai Ling with a somber gaze. "The prison has pipes that can connect to the outside. My plan is to use the pipes to escape." Bai Ling still didn't quite understand. Looking at the small, rusted pipes, she turned to La Lan with suspicion and asked, "Pipes? How can we get out through something so small?" La Lan said excitedly, "There are big ones. When I was captured, I saw pipes on the mountain, very large in diameter, big enough for a dozen people to run through. If we can find the structural drawings of the pipes, we can definitely get out." Bai Ling smirked, "Then how do we get the structural drawings?" La Lan narrowed her eyes, a faint smile on her face. "Something so important must be kept in Guard Cai's office. If we can get into his office, find a chance to threaten Guard Cai, then find the drawings and finally use Guard Cai as cover to retreat into the pipes, the guards won't be able to catch us in the pipes without the drawings. The only worry is that she might not be able to beat him. If that's the case, we need another helper." Hearing La Lan say that, Bai Ling just snorted in disdain. "We don't need one Guard Cai." Then Bai Ling broke into a crazy smile, revealing sharp fangs. Her pupils contracted, her eyes black. "She's laughing. After we are done, we'll kill him." La Lan turned her face away, pondered something, and then said, "Now there's only one problem left. How do we get close to Guard Cai? We have to let him see us. This needs a reason." Bai Ling seemed to understand. She gave a confident smile. "Leave this to me. I have intelligence they need. This is something he can't refuse." After planning for a while, Bai Ling was now in her cell. She screamed shrilly, "Ah! No, I don't want to. I've only been free for a little while." La Lan was on the other side, having handcuffed herself, pointing the remaining handcuff towards Bai Ling. He gently coaxed, "There's no choice. We agreed just now that we each have to lure the guards here first. So we have to continue to pretend for a while. You don't want the plan to fail and not be able to get out, right? Right, Bai Ling. Dropping her animal ears in sadness, she said softly, okay. The hands that had just been freed were now locked in cold iron shackles again. La Lan smiled with satisfaction. Done, everything's settled, I'll start now. Bai Ling also nodded in agreement. La Lan turned away, hiding his worry, and sighed in relief. That's great, he thought, everything is still running perfectly as planned. Next, I have to work hard too. As soon as he finished thinking, La Lan started shouting loudly, "Arrararrar! Guards! Guards! Guards!" La Lan grabbed the iron bar through the vent above the iron door and shouted, "There's something important to report, is anyone there?" The shout echoed throughout the corridor, "Is anyone there? Someone come here! Overseer come here! Is anyone there? Arrararrar!" A guard couldn't stand the shouting anymore. He carried his truncheon down the corridor towards the sound. Along both sides of the corridor, from the other prison cells, the other prisoners were also shouting. Who's shouting? Making us want to shout too. Woo-ah woo-ah-ah. I don't know, the guard shouted. Stop shouting. Silence. Everyone be quiet. As soon as he saw the guard approaching, La Lan cheered excitedly. Guard, over here. I have something important to report. The guard glared angrily at La Lan and cursed, damn bastard. He shouted through the vent, you're the ringleader, right? The guard flung open the cell door. He rushed in to see how he would deal with him. La Lan panicked. It wasn't me. But it seemed that the guard didn't want to listen to him. He rushed over. What do you want to report? I'll let you report it. From behind, Bai Ling suddenly spoke. She smirked and said, it's me. Bai Ling's words just managed to stop a blow from landing on La Lan's head. The guard tilted his head to look in the direction of the voice. He frowned. HMPH, over here, Bai Ling said. I'm the one who called you here. She looked at him with a complicated expression, still smiling. Tell guard CAI, I can't stay in this dump anymore. I want to exchange information for freedom. The location of the intelligence center where my clan is hiding in your capital, take me to see him immediately. If you delay any longer, I might change my mind. La Lan looked at Bai Ling's expression. He smiled with satisfaction, but the guard didn't seem to understand what Bai Ling was saying. He scratched his head with the truncheon, his face full of confusion. The intelligence center is over here, in guard CAI's room. Outside, the rain was still falling incessantly, lightning flashed everywhere. At this time, Bai Ling and La Lan had been taken to guard CAI's room. He sat at his desk and said leisurely, Ching Chiu, Bai Ling, you are a high-ranking member of the demon clan. The information you hold is definitely not insignificant. He quickly urged, speak, let me hear if it's worth it or not. In his mind, he thought, even though it's a coordinated action, if I can dig up useful information, it would be a great merit. Facing him were La Lan and Bai Ling. The two were still silent. Bai Ling didn't say anything, only lowered her head so that the expression on her face could not be seen. Beside her, La Lan thought to himself, next I have to see how she uses intelligence to approach guard CAI, but it doesn't matter, guard CAI will cooperate. The next thing to do is to go with the flow, threaten guard CAI to find the pipe drawings, and then use the pipes to escape from this place. Everything is proceeding as planned. La Lan looked at Bai Ling, thinking it was time for her to take action. Ching Chiu, Bai Ling. Bai Ling lowered her head. She muttered something. 8 o'clock direction, 7 o'clock direction, 6 o'clock direction, 5 o'clock direction. There are 4 people. 1 o'clock direction, 2 o'clock direction. The strongest ability, combat power on my side. Guard CAI saw her mumbling but didn't hear clearly what she was saying. He leaned his ear closer to try to listen. La Lan saw Bai Ling just mumbling without taking action. He began to worry, whispering to Bai Ling, hey, what are you muttering about? Bai Ling was raising her fingers and mumbling calculations. She looked outside. The sky was covered with dark clouds. The rain was pouring. Her eyes lit up. She turned to whisper to her. La Lan, I suddenly thought of a plan. Hearing this, La Lan's face turned dark. Huh? Bai Ling pointed outside towards the window, whispering, how about we jump out the window? Bai Ling's idea shocked La Lan. He blurted out, what? It's still raining. Falling below the building is a black abyss, as dark as the future of those who are in the building. Inside guard CAI's office, a terrifying silence prevailed. La Lan frowned. He looked worriedly towards Bai Ling, thinking to himself, does she want to jump out of the window? Did this demon woman come up with this suddenly, or does she have another plan? Bai Ling's eyes were very serious at this time. There was no sign that she was joking with her intentions. La Lan glanced forward. Now a problem has suddenly arisen. In case the demon head suspects that I am secretly acting behind her back, my family will be in danger. La Lan is now like a puppet, left to be controlled by others. He can only obey because he doesn't want to involve his family. After hearing Bai Ling's idea, La Lan was really wondering, but does she know how high this place is? Moreover, there are many reefs below. This place is probably more than 1,000 meters above sea level. Jumping down like that, I'm afraid you will be crushed to pieces. La Lan suddenly moved closer to Bai Ling. He raised his hand to his mouth, pretending to cough and then whispering to Bai Ling. Why suddenly change the plan? Bai Ling looked indifferently to the side. La Lan was a little worried. Sweating. Haven't we agreed to threaten the prison warden to find the drawings, then escape from the pipe? Bai Ling just glanced at La Lan and said, isn't the main point of this plan to escape? To escape, it's quicker and more sudden to go directly from the window, right? La Lan looked around and said, well, in theory, that's right. But then he explained gently, the escape route was designed carefully by Chu Miwu. The guards outside are packed in tightly. We don't know how to fly either. Falling down is likely to lead to death. This is too risky. But these words completely failed to shake Bai Ling's will. Her eyes were still firm. So, trust me. It's okay. Only La Lan was still suspicious. Trust you? We only met today. How can I trust you? Bai Ling glanced coldly at La Lan. Then she leaned her head close to La Lan, and said, then you can stay here. After all, you know how to unlock locks. Find a chance to escape later. Then La Lan panicked again. What did you say? You escape. I will definitely be considered an accomplice. I will definitely be executed. Bai Ling smiled with satisfaction when she heard La Lan say these words. She lowered her face. Her eyes were a little dangerous. Smirking and saying it like that, you have no other choice. Isn't that right? The prison warden seemed to have lost patience. He knocked hard on the table and said, hey. He looked unhappily towards La Lan and Bai Ling. What are you two whispering about? Both La Lan and Bai Ling looked at him together, as if by appointment. Attention enveloped both of them. In the middle of the large room, behind them were guards with weapons. In front of them was the prison warden. Bai Ling and La Lan stood in the middle like beasts trapped in a cage, not knowing how to resist. The prison warden cleared his throat and warned, I'm warning you too. Don't play tricks. If you want to cause trouble here, the consequences are definitely something you can't bear. Think about your families. Don't you two want to survive and go back? Hearing these words, La Lan's eyes showed some discomfort. He frowned, looking at the prison warden. La Lan thought to himself, did that woman ask him to pass these words on to me? His hands clenched slightly, trembling with anger. But this small movement could not escape Bai Ling's notice. She noticed La Lan's fleeting anger. The prison warden continued to speak. Tell me all the intelligence you know. If it's valuable, I will set you two free. Bai Ling gave him a contemptuous look. She glanced slightly behind her. A guard was holding a gun. Bai Ling made a move at this moment. She stepped forward. La Lan tensed up, thinking to himself, she's ready to make a move. Next, I'll have to improvise. Bai Ling said indifferently, I can give you the intelligence you need. But this is a secret. I can only tell it to you alone. Are you coming over here, or am I going over there? The prison warden laughed loudly, very interesting. He stood up, left his desk, and slowly walked towards the two of them. He took slow, deliberate steps. Before long, he was in front of Bai Ling and La Lan. In his mind, the prison warden was reviewing the script so that he could analyze it a little. Later, after struggling for a while, he would be threatened by them. After that, they would find the escape plan along the water pipe. This mission would be completed perfectly. Thinking of this, he smiled in satisfaction. But suddenly his eyes lit up, as if he had discovered something. He thought to himself, wait, that's not right. There's a mistake in this. What about me? What am I supposed to do? At this moment, he realized the problem. His face turned dark. That shittyman would definitely kill him. If a small prison warden like him died, someone from above would be sent to replace him. So, the person in danger in this plan was not only the special envoy but also himself. In the expression of that shittyman, the words, kill me, were written all over her face. What about the special envoy? Thinking of this, he glanced at La Lan. But La Lan was winking frantically, signaling to the prison warden, with an expression as if to say, do it, just trust me. La Lan turned to look at Bai Ling, thinking to himself, I have to remind the head warden to tell him that the shittyman wants to jump out of the window and run away. If he was prepared, maybe the shittyman would give up this idea. The plan would return to the right track. The prison warden seemed to have caught the signal. He thought to himself, sure enough, there is danger. The special envoy is frantically signaling to me. He looked towards the window, where La Lan kept looking. Why does he keep winking and signaling me to look out the window? Behind him, a flash of lightning across the sky added to the ferocity of the incessant rain. Outside the window, his eyes lit up at this moment. I understand now. Lord La Lan is signaling to me. Maybe they'll jump out of the window and escape. In that case, it seems I don't need to be threatened. Although the two were misunderstanding each other's intentions, the prison warden was very touched by the special envoy's concern for him. Unexpectedly, he saved him from danger again. He really is his lucky star. He looked at La Lan with admiration and thought to himself, Lord La Lan, I will definitely repay you in the future. La Lan, seeing his strange gaze, couldn't help but be puzzled. Does this guy finally understand what I mean? I'm about to fall asleep from blinking so much. The prison warden stopped his steps. He quietly assessed what was happening based on La Lan's attitude. Bai Ling noticed the strange attitude of the prison warden at this time. He didn't seem to have any intention of coming over, which surprised her. Bai Ling lowered her head, looking at the prison warden with a dangerous gaze. What's wrong? You're a dignified head warden, but you don't dare to come closer. You were so imposing in the prison cell just now. The prison warden bent over. He let out a faint laugh. His shoulders shook, and his whole body moved with the eerie laughter. Bai Ling frowned. She asked in a low voice, "What are you laughing at?" The prison warden smirked. His face revealed a dangerous look. He slightly raised his head to look at Bai Ling and La Lan, then said with a smile, "I'm laughing at you for coming up with such a clumsy way to trick me. I've kept you locked up for so long and couldn't pry your mouth open. Why do you suddenly want to reveal a secret to me today?" His laughter grew more and more ferocious. He looked at Bai Ling and said, "Qingqiu Bai Ling, do you think I will believe your lies? Have you become stupid from being in there for so long?" This sudden change in attitude of the prison warden surprised not only Bai Ling but also La Lan. The two of them stared at him in shock. Not knowing what was happening, La Lan was extremely worried at this moment. He frowned, thinking to himself, why isn't the prison warden following the plan? He just needs to get close to Bai Ling, then pretend to be unable to fight back and be captured. As long as he threatens the prison warden to get the pipe drawing, he can persuade Bai Ling to escape through the pipe. After all, compared to jumping out of the window, his plan is much safer. Unexpectedly, this guy. In fact, the prison warden didn't want to go against the plan, but misunderstood La Lan's intentions. Just now, La Lan was frantically winking and signaling to him, but he mistakenly thought that the plan had changed. So now he is improvising on his own, pushing the situation into this predicament. The prison warden pointed and said, "What's the matter? Are you too shocked by me?" Then he looked behind him. "If I'm not mistaken, the reason you want to approach me is probably because of that thing, right? Besides it, I can't think of any other way to escape." The place he was looking at was the safe, which contained the pipe map. He said, "That's the prison pipe diagram stored in my safe." Then he glanced at the two of them. "Unfortunately, your intentions have been seen through by me." Bai Ling snorted softly, "What a foolish and arrogant fool. You're making two fatal mistakes." Bai Ling's words surprised the warden a little. He asked in surprise, "What did you say?" La Lan next to him was also surprised. He turned his head to look at Bai Ling, his eyes complex. The warden still shouted, "Are you not clear about the situation, yet you dare to talk to me like that?" Bai Ling just smirked. "I'm afraid the person who doesn't understand the situation is you, Lord Warden." Bai Ling raised her hand with the heavy iron shackles and pointed to the side. "Why do I dare to come and find you like this? I really want that diagram, but with my hands cuffed like this, how can I get it?" The warden raised his head, still holding his arrogant expression. "That's right, I also find it strange. How can you get the drawing from my hands like this? Could it be that you know how to unlock it?" As soon as he said this word, the warden's face darkened. He seemed to realize something and blurted out, "Unlock it." Bai Ling laughed when she saw that he had realized her intention. Her eyes became more dangerous. The heavy handcuffs had somehow already left Bai Ling's hands. The warden panicked. He didn't expect her to be able to remove the handcuffs so easily. Without saying a word, Bai Ling quickly rushed forward and attacked the warden. The warden, caught by surprise, could only raise his hands helplessly to defend himself. He was struck a few times and thrown backwards. Fortunately, he was still able to stand. He looked up and exclaimed, "The handcuffs are open." Bai Ling had changed a little at this point. One of her eyes had turned black. She laughed and said, "You shouldn't have locked him up with me." La Lan was extremely tense at this point, his face covered in sweat. The warden looked at La Lan and asked, "Lan, do you know how to pick locks? No wonder you could escape from prison." The atmosphere in the warden's office was extremely tense. The soldiers had taken their positions, ready to fire at any moment. Then the warden said in a low voice, "But even if you two opened the handcuffs, it wouldn't mean anything." As he spoke, he slowly pulled something out of his pocket. The warden took something out of his pocket that looked like a walkie-talkie. He pressed the blue button and the walkie-talkie beeped twice. He said into the walkie-talkie, "Hello, this is the warden. I am now ordering the defense raid team to immediately go to the warden's office. The prisoners are currently plotting an escape. Immediately activate Code A lockdown. I repeat, immediately activate Code A lockdown." After giving the order, he put the walkie-talkie away and simply clasped his hands behind his back. Outside, the rain continued to fall. The lightning flashing across the sky only added to the tension in the room. He said in a threatening tone, "You can't fly away even if you have wings." In his head, he thought, "Hey, I just need to block all possible escape routes under the emergency situation." Thinking of this, Bai Ling looked out the window. She could only choose to jump out of the window. The warden was still very sure of his guess. He thought to himself that he would add fuel to the fire, with the goal of making Bai Ling jump out of the window. He shouted, "Fire, kill them!" The soldiers who were waiting for the order now began to raise their guns, pointing them directly at Bai Ling and La Lan, ready to fire. Bai Ling looked worriedly to the side. She exclaimed, "La Lan!" La Lan also realized the danger. His eyes widened as he looked behind him, where the soldiers were preparing to shoot him. Before he could say another word, the soldiers started firing wildly, bullets flying like rain. Bai Ling didn't waste any time. She rushed over and hugged La Lan, getting both of them out of the hail of bullets. Bai Ling's jade-green tail changed at this time, and a faint pink halo emanated around it. Bai Ling enlarged her tail. Somehow, the seemingly soft tail was able to block the oncoming hail of bullets. Bai Ling shielded both of them with her tail while looking at La Lan, and said, "Get ready, we are going to charge out." La Lan was extremely panicked. "Do we really have to jump out of the window?" Bai Ling said with a very confident face, "Do you have a better idea?" La Lan knew that in this situation, jumping out of the window was probably the only option, but the fact that everything didn't go according to plan made him a little dissatisfied. He thought to himself, "Damn it, is this warden trying to kill me? Jumping down from this high is a matter of life and death. If I survive this time, I will definitely kill him." On the other side, the warden couldn't hear La Lan's inner scream. He said in a low voice, "You too." He smiled. He became even more vicious. He didn't seem to be stopping. He said, "Running away won't be that easy." As soon as he finished speaking, he put his strength into the palm of his hand, forming a small golden ball of power. Gradually, the power condensed into something that looked like a blade. The power gradually condensed and the blade-shaped object developed and completed, becoming a long spear surrounded by a dazzling golden energy. The appearance of this strange weapon successfully attracted the attention of Bai Ling and La Lan. Both of them looked at it together, their faces full of confusion and worry. Bai Ling looked dangerously at the warden and said, "I didn't expect you to reach the realm of condensing objects with chi. According to the realm of humans, you must have reached the third level of materialization." The warden did not object to Bai Ling's words. He only said, "That's right, the human body has 720 acupuncture points. Opening up 206 acupuncture points can gather chi into power and can create all things. You can't escape today." La Lan looked worriedly at Bai Ling and asked, "What should we do? Can you fight him?" Bai Ling was a little worried at this time and said, "Fighting will only slow down our escape. We just need to charge to the window." She said and frowned as she looked at the window. Bai Ling said to La Lan, "Stay close to me." La Lan had no other choice but to agree. "Okay." The two of them didn't waste any more time. They just stared at the window and charged towards it, hoping to jump out of the window and escape outside. The warden didn't seem to be dissatisfied. He saw the two of them charging towards the window, just as he had expected. He thought to himself, "That's right, everything is progressing according to my plan. I just need to complete the final step." He thought he would let the two of them jump out of the window peacefully, but no, he rushed over, thinking to himself, "Special envoy, I'm coming." The spear rushed over like a bolt of lightning. La Lan was startled and looked to the side, discovering that the spear was rushing towards this side at a terrifying speed. He panicked. Luckily, La Lan quickly dodged an attack from the spear. The warden was secretly satisfied that his beloved special envoy could dodge the attack just now. But how could he let La Lan easily escape from that attack? He twisted his wrist. He changed the direction of the spearhead, causing the spear shaft to hit La Lan's chest. La Lan screamed and fell to the ground from the warden's attack. Bai Ling stopped at this time, discovering that La Lan had been attacked. She looked back, her eyes dangerous. La Lan's face turned pale. He screamed to save me. But Bai Ling suddenly turned her face away, as if she didn't hear La Lan's plea for help. La Lan discovered Bai Ling's abnormal movement. He became even more panicked, thinking to himself, "Does she want to abandon me?" Bai Ling used the power of her demon core. She raised her hand forward. In the blink of an eye, the glass shattered in front of her, creating an escape route that could not be more clear. The warden looked smugly at Bai Ling and said, "It seems that your alliance is not very strong." Even he thought that Bai Ling had abandoned La Lan to prepare to escape alone. He turned to look at La Lan and prepared for another attack. He shouted, "Then I will send you on your way first." At the moment the spear was right in front of La Lan's eyes. La Lan widened his eyes and couldn't resist. Suddenly a blue tail rushed over. Bai Ling's tail successfully blocked the warden's attack and knocked him backwards at the same time. La Lan looked in surprise at Bai Ling, who had just saved him. "A scene that I saw without any preparation," La Lan screamed. His face turned purple. It was the same tail that had just saved him that was now wrapped around his leg, pulling him up high. Below, the warden could only watch with wide eyes. Outside the window, looking down below are jagged rocks and dark water waiting for the two of them. Bai Ling stood proudly in front of the broken window frame. She looked down, seemingly observing the terrain below, her face without a trace of fear, her eyes full of determination. La Lan on this side only felt a chill down his spine just by looking down. He stuttered as he looked at Bai Ling and said, shouldn't we consider this a little? Bai Ling didn't seem to pay attention to La Lan's words at all. In an instant she pulled him and jumped down. One human and one demon jumped down together from an unbelievable height, aiming for the dark water below and rushing down. The warden at this time also stood at the window frame, silently watching Bai Ling, without any sign of losing his composure, just focusing on rushing down. La Lan was still screaming, his face ashen. The warden quietly watched the disappearing figures of the two people and said, Special Envoy, don't blame me. I'm just following orders. For the final step, at this time he recalled his phone conversation just now. He had to do this step. From inside the phone came the military order: you must severely injure La Lan when he escapes, so that you can eliminate the enemy's suspicion most thoroughly. This is an order. You control the scale. Don't fail Director Lam's expectations for you. He could only strictly obey the order, clearly ensuring the completion of the mission. After recalling everything, he brandished the spear and said the final words, La Lan, I'm sorry, and then from above, he aimed straight at La Lan's body that was falling down at a terrifying speed. Down below, without thinking further, he powerfully launched the spear, still saying, this is also part of the plan. From behind him, it seemed that La Lan could sense the danger. He slowly turned his eyes to look behind him, and was horrified to discover the weapon that was rushing towards him mercilessly. In midair, Bai Ling turned around. She discovered that La Lan had been pierced through by the warden's spear just now. Bai Ling panicked and shouted towards La Lan. La Lan. La Lan's face had turned pale. He looked down at his stomach. The spear shaft pierced a hole in his stomach. Blood flowed out from it, staining a large area of bright red on La Lan's white shirt. La Lan was stunned. He really didn't understand. He could only think, why did the spear pierce my body? The force was still pouring out continuously, making La Lan even more painful. Up above, the warden was quietly watching his achievement. He clenched his right fist, controlling the demon power on the spear and slowly retrieving the spear, thinking to himself, Special Envoy, I'm sorry. I'm just following orders. He intently looked down below, where La Lan and Bai Ling were falling. The spear also disappeared according to the warden's movement. La Lan fell to Bai Ling's place. He closed his eyes tightly and said painfully, I don't want to die. Bai Ling saw La Lan's panic and worry and could only reach out to caress and coax him, you won't die, trust me. When the two were close to reaching the surface of the sea, Bai Ling's tail once again played a role. It zooms in, embracing both of them, enveloping them in a cocoon, enclosing both inside. The cocoon made of Bai Ling's tail plunges straight down into the dark ocean. The fall of both creates a massive shock. Above the sea, the prison warden contentedly watches the scene and turns to say to his subordinate, inform the coastal patrol to exert all their efforts to pursue the escapees. The soldier beside him obeys without hesitation, understood. The prison boat has begun its search for the escaping couple. Warning sounds are constantly emanating from the boat. Report, no escaped criminals have been detected in Sea Zone 3, continue searching. Got it. A soldier by the ship's side leisurely lights a cigarette and says, I don't think they'll be caught. The red-haired man beside him glances over and says, I don't think it'll be successful either. The man in the hat smoking continues, Sea Zone 3 is so vast and we only have one boat. Isn't that like finding a needle in the ocean? The red-haired man replies, in my opinion, they've been buried under the sea long ago. Both look at the dark ocean surface and the rain continues to fall. At this moment, the man in the hat seems to have spotted something. He squints and exclaims, what is that? From the dark ocean surface, a sudden change occurs. The man in the hat is now extremely panicked and the cigarette falls from his mouth. His mouth hangs open, his face is pale, and he shouts, enemy attack on the starboard side. An unidentified object is approaching. The searchlight reveals a blue object rising from the sea, approaching the patrol boat. And that blue object is none other than the cocoon formed from Bai Ling's tail. Earlier, the searchlights were activated to illuminate the object. The terrified soldiers look on, no one daring to breathe. All of them point their guns at the cocoon. The man in the hat shouts, what is this? From inside the cocoon, Bai Ling emerges explosively. Her pink demonic energy emanates an overwhelming aura. In her arms, she is holding La Lan's body. Bai Ling's eyes are filled with extreme anger. She bares her fangs, staring menacingly at the boat. Bai Ling jumps onto the side of the boat. The soldiers panic, she's up here. Fire. Following the command, all the soldiers fire simultaneously. Everyone's face is filled with fear in the face of this demoness overwhelming aura. But the rain of bullets cannot harm Bai Ling. Her tail completely shields her from the attacks coming from the humans. Bai Ling looks at the soldiers with a sharp gaze. Her tail begins to attack. This time, that tail transforms into a sharp weapon. Before long, the bodies of all the soldiers are split in two. The red-haired soldier is now pale with fear. He is frozen, seemingly unable to believe what is happening before his eyes. Finally, he is easily torn in two by Bai Ling. Afterward, she picks up La Lan and leaves. Bai Ling, with La Lan in her arms, walks among the scattered corpses, her body radiating a scary aura. No one knows what she is thinking in the night under the pouring rain. On the patrol boat, a mournful scream echoes from the cockpit, and through the observation window, streaks of fresh blood are visible, clinging to the glass of the cockpit. A crew-cut man in a white shirt is lying on the floor, begging incessantly, don't kill me. I beg you. Red blood is splattered all around him, and the unrecognizable corpses lying dismembered before him are Bai Ling's doing. She casts a cold gaze upon him, asking in a low voice, do you know how to steer a boat? In her arms, she still holds La Lan's body, who is still unconscious. He answers in a panic, yes, I know how to steer. I'm valuable, spare my life. Bai Ling coldly says, to the Demon Sea, closest to Sea Zone 3. Maintain the signal on the boat, continue to maintain contact with headquarters, and say that you want to approach the Demon Sea to conduct a search. If you harbor any ill intentions, you'll be the first to die. Bai Ling's gaze is full of malice as she looks at the crew-cut man. There's not a hint of joking in her voice. The young man with the crew cut is drenched in sweat. He clasps his hands and says, yes, I will definitely obey. Bai Ling looks at him and then walks to the side. She gently lays La Lan down on the ground. La Lan frowns slightly, his face seemingly extremely uncomfortable and in pain. Bai Ling leans down. She gently says, don't worry, we are safe now. After laying La Lan down, Bai Ling turns to ask the crew cut man, where is the first aid kit on the boat? The crew cut man understands and says, I'll go get it right away. In the night, on the dark ocean surface, the patrol boat is still sailing. From a distance, everything seems normal. Perhaps no one knows that a massacre has just occurred on this boat. There are now few survivors on the boat. The young man with the crew cut is operating the boat while anxiously sweating, seemingly extremely worried about what his fate will be. The only way to survive now is to listen to the demoness who is threatening him. On the boat, blood-stained bandages are scattered on the floor. Bai Ling has just finished administering first aid to La Lan's wounds, and she sits down wearily beside him. Even though the wound has been bandaged, a large patch of blood is still seeping through. Bai Ling frowns as she looks at it, not knowing what she is thinking. La Lan, because of the pain and fear, doesn't seem to be able to fully regain consciousness. His face is pale, his forehead is soaked in sweat, he frowns, his mind beginning to wander and think about something. It seems that the pain and fear have sent La Lan into a dream. In that dream, the surroundings are all bright and cheerful. There is the sound of children giggling. A lovely little girl holding a pinwheel happily turns around and says to La Lan, brother La Lan, look, the pinwheel is spinning so fast. La Lan sits on a wooden chair, smiling gently as he looks at the little girl and says, I see it. Don't run too fast, be careful not to fall, the headmaster will scold me again. Then a little girl walks to La Lan, surprising him. He looks at the little girl and says, oh, Xiao Meng. The girl who just walked over is Xiao Meng. Xiao Meng looks at La Lan and says, brother La Lan, you bought a pinwheel for a moo but not for me. Your behavior is very bad, I'm very angry. La Lan raises his hand as if he just remembered something. I remember. Tomorrow is the birthday of the most adorable Xiao Meng in the universe. Perhaps I'll buy an extremely delicious cake to give to her. Xiao Meng hears this and immediately breaks into a smile, unable to hide her excitement. Really? Smiling and looking at La Lan with her shining eyes, Xiao Meng obediently runs over. She sits down beside La Lan and excitedly says, then I want chocolate flavor, the kind that has lots and lots of chocolate. La Lan, seeing that he has achieved his goal of coaxing the little girl, laughs. Xiao Meng beside him continues to chatter non-stop. Brother La Lan, you can't lie to me. La Lan smiles, it's a deal. At this moment, Xiao Meng suddenly lowers her head. She says in a low voice, it's a deal. Well, don't you have a mission? La Lan is startled. His eyes darken, as if he misheard. Xiao Meng, what did you say? But Xiao Meng keeps her head down, not looking at La Lan. If the mission isn't completed. Saying this, she suddenly turns to look at La Lan. But what's scary is that on her head, right in the middle of her forehead, is a large wound, blood flowing from the wound without stopping. Her eyes also become lifeless. She continues, we'll all die, won't we? And this appearance of Xiao Meng scares La Lan stiff. He recoils in shock, shouting ah. Then suddenly, not only Xiao Meng but all the children, including the little girl Amu holding the pinwheel, also have a wound on their heads. Looking like gunshot wounds, blood flowing from the wounds without stopping. The scene is extremely eerie. Xiao Mu says, brother La Lan. La Lan looks at Xiao Mu and cries out in horror, Amu. At this moment, a woman's voice comes from behind. The scene of your closest loved ones dying right before your eyes isn't pleasant, is it? La Lan recognizes this voice. Immediately, he turns his head and glares at the woman. La Lan cries out in fear, Lan Muyang. The woman named Lan Muyang looks at La Lan and curls her lips into a chilling smile. You should call me Lord Lan Muyang. Lan Muyang walks closer to La Lan. She clasps her hands behind her back, looking at La Lan with cold eyes and says, "So?" And La Lan is looking at her with a very wary expression. His body involuntarily recoils. La Lan angrily looks at Lan Muyang and says, "You promised me, as long as I do the mission, you wouldn't harm my family." Lan Muyang, faced with La Lan's questioning, doesn't feel guilty at all. She even curls her lips into a smile and moves closer to La Lan, saying arrogantly, "Who do you think you are? Remember this." She leans close to La Lan's ear, threatening in a low voice, "You don't have the right to negotiate with me. Your family's lives are within my grasp." This statement turns La Lan's face pale, feeling the anger engulfing his body. Lan Muyuan went over to Lua Lan. She looked at him smugly and said, "You are not the only choice. It's your blessing that the Secret Service values you. If you complete this concealment plan well, I won't mistreat you." Lua Lan frowned, and he pretended to be disdainful and said, "I don't care. I only need my family to be safe." And Lua Lan's attitude made Lan Muyuan angry. She coldly turned around and slapped him hard. This slap made Lua Lan extremely angry, and a long streak of blood appeared on his mouth. He glared at Lan Muyuan and shouted angrily, "Lan Muyuan." The angrier he got, the more unstoppable Lan Muyuan became. She kicked him away. Lua Lan flew a long distance and landed painfully. Fresh blood gushed from his mouth more and more. Lua Lan painfully hugged his chest, his face contorted. Lan Muyuan couldn't get close to Lua Lan. She used her high-heeled shoes to step on his chest, causing Lua Lan to cry out in pain. Lan Muyuan's eyes were cold. She said through gritted teeth, "I told you, you have to call me Lord Lan Muyuan." My eyes darkened, and then a malicious smile bloomed. "In the Secret Service, you can only be a loyal dog under my command. Rewards and punishments are handed down by the master. If you dare to disobey me again, I will take your head next time." Lua Lan was, of course, scared. He never wanted to die. Thinking of his family in her hands, he could only endure it. Then Lua Lan had no choice but to scream in pain, "Aa." This pain seemed to end Lua Lan's dream. He slowly frowned and finally opened his eyes. Lua Lan looked around, observing the situation vaguely. He saw a young man in a white shirt on the other side, buzz cut, controlling something. There was a lot of blood on the floor. Lua Lan gradually regained consciousness. He thought to himself, "It's just a dream again. I don't have the ability to fight back in my dream." He frowned angrily, "A loyal dog, Lan Muyuan. I will let you know that even a defeated dog has fangs." While Lua Lan was still lost in his thoughts, Bai Ling, who was beside him, noticed that he was awake and said that he seemed to have had a nightmare. Lua Lan gazed around and then looked at the large, bloody wound on his abdomen, realizing that Bai Ling had bandaged it. He slowly sat up and looked at Bai Ling, saying apologetically, "Thank you for saving me." Bai Ling indifferently replied, "It's all the same. Without you unlocking it, we wouldn't be able to escape." She smiled, "Luckily, you have a strong life. You weren't injured in a vital spot. With your healing ability, Meng Jing, with some time to recuperate, you will probably be completely healed." Lua Lan looked around, only now realizing that he was on a boat. He asked doubtfully, "Are we on a boat?" Bai Ling explained, "You fainted at the time. I hijacked the patrol boat that was chasing us." Lua Lan was surprised, "Is this a ship of the human race?" Bai Ling replied, "That's right. Except for the helmsman, I killed everyone else, considering it compensation for me for that time." As Bai Ling spoke, she looked around. On the side, the helmsman's face turned pale upon hearing this, unable to hide his fear. Lua Lan looked at the corpses lying all over the corner of the room, his emotions complicated. These people died a gruesome death, some losing certain parts of their bodies, others with a large hole in the middle of their bodies. But Lua Lan didn't have much time to care about these things. He turned to Bai Ling again and asked, "So where are we going next?" Suddenly, the helmsman shouted loudly, "Be careful," with a terrified expression, and this shout attracted the attention of Lua Lan and Bai Ling. The two of them looked in the same direction, and then the boat suddenly shook violently, causing everyone on the boat to sway. A violent shock appeared on the sea, causing the boat to tilt to one side. Inside, unable to keep his balance, Lua Lan lost his footing and fell to one side. He looked worriedly and asked, "Have the enemies caught up?" Bai Ling calmly curled her lips into a smile, saying with a calm expression, "Don't worry, we are here." This statement surprised Lua Lan. He turned to look at Bai Ling, who was extremely calm, and Lua Lan asked, "Where?" Bai Ling curled her lips into a smile, "Of course, the place closest to the number 3 sea gate of the immortal martial nation." The place they were heading to was the dark sea of the Demon Kingdom. The ship went deeper and deeper into the dark area. The scenery was extremely eerie. Right at the bow of the ship, Bai Ling and Lua Lan stood there quietly, looking around. The fog tightly covered the entire space. Lua Lan frowned and commented, "This sea is really dangerous." Looking down, on the surface of the sea, huge whirlpools violently overlapped each other, looking extremely ferocious. Lua Lan said again, "Although I am a demon, I have never been here before. The chaotic storm is indeed a natural shield." No wonder every attack by the immortal martial nation has failed. Hearing this, Bai Ling turned her eyes to look at Luo Lan, then she turned back to the front and smiled. That's right. Now the power of the immortal martial nation is strong. If there were no this sea as a shield, I am afraid that the southern demon kingdom would have completely fallen. The ship still galloped on the turbulent waves towards the front, the entire huge hull shaking violently. Luo Lan, standing at the bow of the ship, could not escape losing his balance, his entire body swaying as if he was about to fall. Bai Ling beside him did not change color, but stood there upright. Luo Lan worriedly looked at Bai Ling and said loudly, "Water and fire are merciless, it will not be lenient because we are demons. If we go deeper, I am afraid that the ship will get lost." But contrary to Luo Lan's worry, Bai Ling only curled her lips into a smile and said, "Don't panic, I won't let you be buried in the belly of a fish." Then she cupped her hands to her mouth and hooted a few times, "Hoo coo coo coo, hoo coo coo, hoo." Then she repeated that strange sound again, "Hoo coo coo, hoo coo coo, hoo." And again. Not long after that, a dark shadow gradually appeared from afar. Looking closer, it turned out to be a sea monster, its head looking like a fish, its large body covered with thick scales and sharp thorns, its eyes shone with a purple light, looking very eerie. I don't know if it was because of the strange sound that Bai Ling made just now. At this moment, countless sea monsters began to rush over, holding weapons in their hands. They approached the boat. Some sea monsters had begun to crawl on the side of the boat, trying to climb up. Luo Lan started to panic. He turned to ask, "Who are they?" The sea monsters had now reached the bow of the ship, where Luo Lan and Bai Ling were standing. Not just one, but many sea monsters were staring intently at them. The large group of sea monsters gathered together, surrounding Bai Ling and Luo Lan towards the bow of the ship. Even the surviving young man was extremely frightened at the sight of this scene. He was sweating, his face pale. "Ah, it's over." Deep Sea Scout at this time, a sea monster has approached the cockpit. It opened the door, looked at the trembling young man and said, "Come out obediently." The young man had no other choice, he could only obediently obey. "Yes." Luo Lan looked at Bai Ling and asked in a low voice, "Did you just call these mermen here?" Bai Ling admitted, "That's right. They are the watchtowers on the front line." A merman looked at the two of them and asked, "Who are you?" "You entered the Demon Kingdom's sea in the Immortal Martial Nation's patrol boat, but you know our secret password." Bai Ling spoke up, "I am Hajiang of the Qingqiu tribe." Bai Ling slowly repeated that sentence twice and then used a commanding voice. She said to the merman, "Take me back to Han City. I will reward you greatly." The merman seemed extremely surprised. You are Hajiang of Qingqiu." Not giving the merman any more chance to doubt. Bai Ling at this time showed off her Qingqiu power. Her whole body emanated an extremely powerful purple demonic energy, a feeling of pressing the opponent to the extreme. Then she looked at them with cold eyes. "What, you don't believe it?" The merman was terrified by Bai Ling's overwhelming aura. It was sweating, stammering. The merman knelt down in front of Bai Ling. "Your subordinate greets Lord Hajiang. Congratulations to the Lord for turning danger into safety, escaping danger." Bai Ling frowned. "Stop saying those empty words. Hurry up and take me back to Han City. Also, don't reveal that I'm back. You guys are not allowed to leave me for half a step from now on." Not only the merman, even Luo Lan was worried by Bai Ling's overwhelming aura. What kind of high position does she have? Even these ferocious mermen are extremely respectful to her. The mermen heard the order and immediately shouted clearly. At this time they had arrived at a place called Han City. It seems like this place is a fortress, surrounded by seawater, looking extremely sturdy. At this moment, in an ancient office, a demon is kowtowing to the ground. In front of him, hanging on the wall, is a golden dragon face, very dignified. He quickly reports to the person in front of him, "Lord, Third Miss has entered the city." From the wall, the dragon head emits a voice. Unexpectedly, she could escape from the gathering place of the human race. Moreover, we didn't receive any news on her way back. Missing the best opportunity to strike. That little brat has become much smarter after this incident. In the future, she might be a troublesome issue. The subordinate cautiously speaks up, "Should I?" But before he could finish, the voice on the wall rises again. "She has already entered the city. Many people are watching, so it's not convenient to act for now. The future is long, sooner or later I will get everything I want." At this time, at the ferry of Han City, an extremely large ship is docking. This is the ship of the merfolk who came to escort Bai Ling and Lao Lan into Han City. Until both of them successfully set foot on shore, they did not forget to respectfully bow. One of the merfolk says, "Lord Bai Ling, your subordinate has now escorted you back to the city. Now, please allow me to take my leave. May you have peace and prosperity in Han City." Bai Ling glances at the merman with approval. "Yes, you did a great job. Right? I will request the position of commander for you from Sea Defense Admiral Ao Shah." Hearing the praise, the merman hurriedly bows his head to thank her. "Your humble servant thanks you for the promotion." The two stop in front of a magnificent city, which looks very modern and vibrant. La Lan looks up at the city in front of him and says with some interest, "This is my first time in Han City. I didn't expect it to be so bustling." Bai Ling glances at him and says, "It's not surprising that you're surprised. Although the Demon Country is more backward than the Xinwu Country, Han City is adjacent to the Black Sea, has many waterways, prosperous trade, and is also an important defensive position with a powerful army. This is one of the 3 major cities of the Demon Country, second only to the capital. It's bound to be developed." La Lan frowns and looks at Bai Ling, then asks, "So, where are we going now?" Bai Ling looks into the distance. She slightly grabs her coat and says softly, "Home." As soon as she finishes speaking, a convoy of black cars follows each other on the main road. The movement of this convoy has attracted the attention of both Bai Ling and La Lan. La Lan is stunned, staring at the scene of the luxurious convoy proceeding one after another. This convoy suddenly stops in front of La Lan and Bai Ling. Bai Ling is no less surprised than La Lan. She waits with wide eyes to see what will happen. La Lan asks, "Is this here to pick you up?" "2 grand. At this moment, the door of a car opens. Stepping out of the car is a pair of dazzling red high heels. It seems that the person who just stepped out is a woman. A purple head peeks out above the woman's head, and there is also a small horn. This person seems to be wearing a very eye-catching traditional red outfit. She steps down and walks towards Bai Ling and La Lan. From the back, it can be seen that this is a girl with a very beautiful figure. La Lan blushes at the sudden appearance of the beauty, thinking to himself that the girl is charming, but Bai Ling doesn't seem to be interested at all. The purple-haired girl walks up to Bai Ling and respectfully bows. Bai Ling casts her eyes on the girl in front of her. The girl says softly, "This servant welcomes the Lord. The Lord has gone through many hardships and finally escaped from danger. The old ancestor received the news early on and was so happy that she danced." Bai Ling couldn't help but tear up when she heard the old ancestor. Is the old ancestor still well? The one who called herself a servant could not hold back her tears. She said with a sob, "Lord." Then she looked up at Bai Ling and said, "Since you were captured, the old ancestor has missed you day and night." Bai Ling was even more moved when she heard this. She sobbed, her face flushed red. While a master and a servant were acting out a crying scene, the purple-haired girl suddenly noticed La Lan's presence. She curiously looks at the boy next to her, tears still flowing. She asks in a low voice, "Who is this?" La Lan suddenly stammers when he notices that she is paying attention to him. "I am Bai Ling." Seeing La Lan stammering, Bai Ling continues, "His name is La Lan. He is the one who helped me escape from prison." La Lan politely greets, "Miss Gu, hello." But at this time, Gu turns quickly to La Lan and bows deeply, with gratitude, "Thank you very much for saving my young lady. Gu will definitely repay you handsomely." This action has made La Lan more and more confused. He blushes and waves his hand, Don't. You don't have to bow like that." Bai Ling can't stand it anymore. She glances to the side and says, "All right, let's go back." At this time, Gu happily raises her head, "Yes." La Lan also breathes a sigh of relief. Gu approaches the car and opens the door. "Lord, please get in." The merfolk from before continue to shout loudly, respectfully send off Lord Bai Ling. Bai Ling indifferently turns to La Lan and says, "La Lan, come with me." The convoy continues to roll on the long road. Inside the car, the atmosphere is a bit awkward. Bai Ling sits next to La Lan. The two do not look at each other, both looking out the window. La Lan secretly looks towards Bai Ling. He thinks about something and then withdraws his gaze. He looks back outside, but this small movement seems to not escape Bai Ling's eyes. She asks in a low voice, "Ask whatever you want. You saved me, you don't need to be polite in front of me." La Lan hesitates for a moment and then says, "Then, can you find a place somewhere ahead to drop me off? I don't want to be involved with big shots." Hearing La Lan's words, Bai Ling glances at him. It is unclear what she is thinking. She says, "You helped me escape from prison in a life-or-death situation. Don't you want me to repay you with the power of my family?" Bai Ling's eyes become dangerous. "This reward might change your destiny." Hearing her say that, the only thing that La Lan cares about is something else. He looks at her and asks, "What is your family's identity?" Bai Ling looks at the scenery outside the car window. She says indifferently, "This place was not originally called Han City but Qingqiu. It is the holy city of the fox demon race. My Qingqiu ancestor is the master of this holy city. It is the nine-tailed fox king. After the 10,000 Demons War, Qingqiu Kai failed and submitted to the 10,000 Demons King. Qingqiu City was also renamed Han City, meaning the Demon King's desire to guard this cold land for generations. After that, the Demon King transferred the 3 great clans and 24 small clans to jointly manage Hanju in order to contain the power of my clan. Han City is the heart of Hanju, the traffic hub of hundreds of cities. Currently, there are 4 major families in Hanju, the Qingqiu clan, the Ao clan, the Shan clan, and the Yu clan. Qingqiu is the leader. At this time, La Lan politely interrupts Bai Ling, sorry. Although I am also a demon, I have lived in Xinwu country since I was a child, I don't know any of this. Bai Ling only asks, so. She smirks, do you still want to refuse my reward this time? La Lan says with wide eyes, of course, I'm not kidding. Before, I only felt that your power was unusual, I didn't want to cling to it. Now that I hear more, I want to stay away even more. Bai Ling says angrily, you really don't want to be involved with me. La Lan shakes his head vigorously with wide eyes, yes, I don't want to. La Lan's attitude of disgust has made Bai Ling annoyed. She turns her face away and says, is that okay? Who dares to refuse me like that? You come back with me. My old ancestor will definitely thank you in person. If you don't accept a grand gift, you still need some money. You still have to live here anyway. La Lan is a little confused, money is fine, but I feel that Lan is about to say something that will make me offended. Bai Ling quickly shouts to block his mouth, shut up, don't say anything more. Let me be quiet for a while. Because of the conversation just now, the atmosphere in the car is a bit tense at this time. La Lan sits beside her sweating, while Bai Ling just sulks and turns her face away. The convoy is still speeding along the road. Finally, it stops in front of a house with an extremely ancient design. Bai Ling looks up at the plaque hanging in front of the gate. She says in a low voice, Qingqiu Manor. La Lan follows closely behind. Bai Ling continues, I'm back. At this time, outside the gate, two fox demons shout as soon as they see Bai Ling, Miss, the Miss is back. The blue fox demon frowns and looks at the red fox demon and says, you're so stupid, why don't you go and inform them? The red fox demon scratches his head and says, yes, yes. The red fox demon immediately turns back inside. He shouts loudly, old ancestor, the old ancestor is back. The young lady is back. The blue fox demon respectfully bows. Young lady Bai Ling confidently walks inside, followed by La Lan and Gu. As for the red fox demon, he runs inside on all fours, still shouting non-stop, the old ancestor is back. The young lady is back. There is another demon standing in front of the gate. This person is also a fox demon, but his demeanor is much more dignified. This fox demon wears glasses, he squints at the red fox demon and says, you have no manners, making so much noise in the manor, what kind of system is this? This person is the steward of Qingqiu Manor. Lian, the red fox demon kept shouting. Lian chief manager, the young lady is back, and Mao told me to come to inform the old ancestor. Lian chief manager just looks at him indifferently and says, is that so? The eyes of Lian chief manager are a bit unpredictable, it is not known what he is thinking. From the entrance, Bai Ling leads the way, followed by La Lan and Gu. Lian chief manager clasps his hands behind his back, in contrast to the joy of the red fox demon, he says sternly, how dare you? No one is allowed to be noisy in the manor, no matter who returns. Considering that this is your first offense, kneel here and get 60 strikes on your hands as an example to others. The poor fox spirit could only kneel down remorsefully and say, steward, please spare me. I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. Bai Ling then stepped forward and said indifferently, Steward Lian, how majestic and awe-inspiring. Today, a Mao lost his sense of propriety because he was so happy to see me return. Can you forgive him once for my sake? Steward Lian looked over at Bai Ling and he respectfully bowed, Miss, please go see the old ancestor. She misses you day and night. Leave the servants' affairs to me. Bai Ling cast a disdainful look at Steward Lian. It was clear that he had no intention of forgiving a Mao. Luo Lan wondered to herself, it seems that the steward of Qingqiu Manor doesn't like Gu very much. There must be someone backing him up. Although Steward Lian lowered his head, his eyes secretly followed Bai Ling's every move. And at this moment, Bai Ling was angered by him and her body emitted demonic power. Her eyes became dangerous, what if I insist on intervening? But Steward Lian didn't seem to be afraid at all, he just insisted, in Qingqiu Manor, the stewards have the power to punish servants. This old servant is only doing what is within my authority. All matters of the stewards are decided by the master of the house. After I punish him, if Miss feels it is unfair, you can report it to the master of the house, and this old servant will abide by the master's decision. Then he looked up at Bai Ling, this is a clear rule, and your words are not taken seriously. Bai Ling realized the meaning in his words and was a little angry, but she couldn't seem to do anything about it because he was somewhat right. Gu couldn't keep silent any longer. She spoke up, Steward Lian, how dare you talk back to the miss? I will definitely go tell the old ancestor to punish you. Steward Lian glanced at Gu, you are just a maid beside the miss, don't forget your status. The master of the house hates gossiping the most. I advise you not to ask for trouble, this is not a place for you to speak. Gu was speechless at Steward Lian's words and could only be angry. Steward Lian pointed to the side and said respectfully, all right, miss, leave this matter to me. The old ancestor is still waiting for you, please go quickly. Isn't this just subtly chasing her away? Bai Ling gritted her teeth in anger and thought to herself, I've failed again. As long as that old fox has that man backing him, this humiliation will never be erased. I'm unwilling, I'm really unwilling. Thinking of this, Bai Ling clenched her fists. Anger was surging within her body. Bai Ling raised her foot to walk away when suddenly, at this moment, Steward Lian looked up in surprise at the person approaching him. A voice said, Steward Lian, right. Before he could say anything more, Luo Lan, who was right next to him, quickly kicked Steward Lian straight in the face before Bai Ling's astonished eyes. Steward Lian was caught off guard and could only take the kick. He fell painfully onto the wooden floor, crying out, ah. The scene just now shocked everyone present, including Amao and including Ji-Yu. She covered her mouth, her eyes shining with admiration, her face flushed red. Even Bai Ling was extremely surprised by Luo Lan's actions. Luo Lan retracted his leg, he rotated his fist and looked at Steward Lian. He said in a low voice, You damned slave, are you rebelling? I've been tolerating you for a while now. Steward Lian covered his face. Angrily, he shouted, Who are you to dare hit me? Luo Lan was not afraid, he just said calmly, How can you set rules for others but not follow them yourself? Luo Lan's words surprised Bai Ling. She stared at him with wide eyes. Luo Lan looked at Steward Lian lying on the ground and continued, You are the steward of this manor, right? Isn't the steward supposed to carry out the will of the master? Yet you openly defy the missus' wishes. Luo Lan squinted at him, Aren't you your masters? You can already be above your master. He slowly stood up, his face full of anger as he growled, Good. His face gradually darkened. He bared his sharp fangs and said, I accept these words. May I ask who this sir is? Bai Ling looked at him and said, This Mr. Luo helped me escape. Steward Lian still couldn't hide his anger. He said, So it's the Mrs. Savior. Good. I will remember that. His voice was full of bitterness. Steward Lian then began to shift his attention to Amao. He said, You have some ability, the miss pleaded for you, so hurry up and get lost. Amao was sweating profusely, relieved to have escaped a disaster. He clasped his hands in thanks, Thank you, Chief Steward. Raising his hand high and striking lightly, Steward Lian then turned to Bai Ling and said, Miss, the old ancestor is still waiting for you. Bai Ling lazily replied, I know, I'm going now. Then Bai Ling and Luo Lan left. Steward Lian stood to the side, clasping his hands and bowing as he saw them off. As Luo Lan walked past him, Steward Lian's eyes were somewhat complex. Luo Lan coldly glanced at Steward Lian. His gaze was full of anger, staring straight at him, wishing he could pounce on Luo Lan and tear him apart. Finally, the two left. Steward Lian evilly smirked and said, Mr. Luo, we have a lot of time. It is unknown what evil scheme he is brewing. The two went to a separate courtyard not far away. It seems that this is where the old ancestor lives. Inside, an old woman was sitting in the middle of the courtyard. Beside her was a servant attending to her. The old woman had long, blue fingernails, her hands were slightly wrinkled, and she wore gold and jade jewelry, looking very noble and luxurious. This old woman is the Chengqiu clan, old ancestor Chengqiu. She looked at the servant beside her, anxiously asking, Hasn't Bai Ling arrived yet? The servant respectfully replied, reporting to the old ancestor, She should be here soon. Please don't be anxious, old ancestor, wait a little longer. Just then, the door suddenly opened. Another maid rushed in to report, Old ancestor, she's here, the miss is here. The old woman then opened her eyes wide, seemingly extremely expectant. She slowly stood up from her chair, trembling. The servant panicked upon seeing this, Old ancestor, please slow down. She stepped forward to help the old ancestor up. From the outside, Bai Ling slowly walked in, followed by Luo Lan and Ji-Yu. Bai Ling walked in, her eyes filled with tears, Old ancestor, I'm back. The old ancestor also looked at Bai Ling affectionately. She softly called out, Linga. She trembled as she took difficult steps towards her. She took Bai Ling's hand and she looked at her with heartache and called out, Old ancestor, Old ancestor. She lovingly caressed Bai Ling's face, tears constantly streaming down her face. The old woman looked at Bai Ling and said, Let old ancestor take a good look. You've gotten thinner, those days in there weren't good. How could old ancestor think that I wouldn't see you again? Bai Ling emotionally took the old ancestor's hand and said, Linga was worried that old ancestor would be worried. Old ancestor, look, she smiled and stroked her hair, saying, Didn't I come back without any problems? The old ancestor was satisfied to see her like that. At this time, the old ancestor glanced to the side. She noticed the young man who came with Bai Ling, Luo Lan. She asked, So this young man is a friend? Bai Ling enthusiastically introduced, Old ancestor, he is Luo Lan. Luo Lan helped me escape from that place. If it weren't for him, I'm afraid I would still be in that terrifying place of imprisonment. The old ancestor nodded in satisfaction. Good. Quickly tell me how you were able to escape. Luo Lan nodded. On the other side, Steward Lian strolled down a long corridor. He clasped his hands in front of his chest, wearing small glasses. His expression was unclear. He stopped in front of a large door and respectfully said, "Master, Miss has returned," and she brought an outsider, named Luo Lan, who is said to be the savior who rescued Miss from prison. Inside, a person writing calligraphy stopped writing upon hearing this. He was a very large black-furred fox demon, full of majesty. He had a very large scar on his face and his bloodshot eyes added to his ferocity. He said in a low voice, "I know, this demon is the patriarch of the Qingqiu clan." Qingqiu is Steward Lian, who respectfully bowed his head and said, "Then will master still go to see the miss?" Ao Luo lowered his head, his hands still diligently completing the calligraphy. He said again, "Don't meet, everything remains the same. As for that savior, give him a reward, but don't break the rules of the Qingqiu clan." Contrary to his ferocious and large appearance, his handwriting was neat and meticulous. The calligraphy was gradually completed. Back on this side, the old ancestor was still chatting with Bai Ling. She snuggled up, resting her head on the old ancestor's lap like a child, listening to the story from Luo Lan. Bai Ling, the old ancestor laughed and exclaimed, "Good, you dared to jump out of the window to escape. You guys were really reckless, it made me jump. You're out now and can't be used anymore." Bai Ling triumphantly said, "Those human wastrels couldn't stop me at all." The old ancestor laughed, "Your mouth is really big." She looked at Luo Lan again, saying, "I didn't expect you to have such amazing skills." Luo Lan clasped his hands in gratitude and said, "You flatter me, old ancestor, it's just some worldly tricks not worth mentioning." Then she asked again, "Young Master Luo, what clan do you belong to?" Bai Ling also turned her eyes towards Luo Lan. La Lan calmly replied, "I am from the Shanlan clan of the north, but I'm just from a branch, not the main lineage." The old ancestor curiously asked, "How did you get caught up in there? You must have suffered a lot, right?" La Lan's gaze became wary. He thought to himself, "This old ancestor looks frail, but every sentence is actually clearly investigating my background." He started acting. La Lan took a breath and said, "It's a long story." Then he began to tell, "When I was young, Mo Cheng in the north and the surrounding villages suffered from drought, and the harvest failed. There were also fires in the forest and the area was on the border. We knew that Xianwu country was prosperous, so in order to survive, I secretly followed my clansmen to Xianwu country to seek a way to live." He continued, "Later, I learned lockpicking and started living by stealing." La Lan laughed as he said this, then scratched his head, "Unfortunately, if you walk by the river often, how can you not get your shoes wet? In the end, I was still caught. Then I was imprisoned in a prison on 6 islands for several years. I found an opportunity to escape, but as soon as I got out, I was caught again." Bai Ling looked up at the old ancestor and added, "Old ancestor, you don't know, on the way back, I made an offer, but he firmly refused, not wanting to get involved with our family as if we were monsters." Hearing this, the old ancestor looked at La Lan with even more interest and said, "Oh, why is that?" La Lan became wary again, and he replied with some concern, "I just think that I was able to escape completely thanks to Miss Bai Ling's skills, so I have nothing to repay. We just helped each other." Bai Ling was kneeling on the ground, and when she heard this, she straightened up. She propped her chin up with her hand and glanced at La Lan. This incomprehension made La Lan, who was already worried, even more worried. Then she playfully stuck out her tongue as if teasing him. The old ancestor said again, "Young Master La, you have indeed lived among the human race for a long time, you do have some gentlemanly principles. But after all, you can't not express something, can you?" At this time, Steward Lian stood in front of the door, respectfully bowing to the old ancestor. "Steward Lian is here to report that the family head ordered me to report to the old ancestor. The family head has important matters to deal with, and will not be coming. I hope the old ancestor will forgive him." Bai Ling looked at him with a disgusted look, then turned her face away and snorted coldly. "Humph." La Lan noticed Bai Ling's expression. He couldn't help but speculate about the family head. Could it be Bai Ling's father? Their relationship doesn't seem to be very good. The old ancestor seemed unhappy. She frowned and said, "If you don't want to come, just say so, don't make up such a bad excuse." Steward Lian still respectfully bowed his head, not daring to. The family head really has something he can't get away from. I still hope the old ancestor will forgive him. The old ancestor didn't want to argue, just coldly said, "Ha ha, I'm too lazy to meet him anyway, but there's still something I need him to do." Having said that, she pointed her finger in La Lan's direction. "This person is Bai Ling's savior. La Lan, young Master Lane." Steward Lian looked up at La Lan, unable to hide his anger. He gritted his teeth and said, "I've met him in the front yard before." The old ancestor nodded and said, "That's good, it's just as well that you can go back and ask how we should reward him to repay him." Steward Lian seemed to have prepared for this question in advance. He respectfully replied, reporting to the old ancestor, "When I came, the family had instructed that the Fire God Street Qingbei patrol team is missing a captain. The position is neither high nor low, it's just right for a young talent like Mr. La to train. As he spoke, he revealed a sinister look that Bai Ling seemed to notice something unusual. She asked back, Fire God Street. Bai Ling frowned and said, that place is an area that no one manages, it's a mix of good and bad, the previous action team captain died unclearly, is this what you call a good job? The old ancestor also seemed dissatisfied. Bai Ling looked up at the old ancestor and said, Old ancestor, isn't this harming someone? You should still let him come to the army to work with me. Although she seemed dissatisfied, the old ancestor hesitated a little and said, this matter. Before the old ancestor could say anything, Steward Lian continued, Miss, the army is not like other departments, you need to know the origins of each member in detail. Moreover, the army is not a place that our family can decide. Bai Ling pouted, what do you mean? Steward Lian said, it's nothing, it's just that Mr. La and the Mrs. identities are different, if you are together day and night, I'm afraid it's not very good, right? La Lan was a little confused at this time, looking at the scene in front of him, asking one side and answering the other, back and forth. Lola couldn't help but speak up, everyone, he waved his hand to dismiss it, there's no need to hurt the harmony because of me. La Lan said in confusion, my original intention was not to save people, we just joined forces to escape. I can't bear such a reward. Bai Ling glared at La Lan angrily, La Lan, you don't want to accept my good intentions that much. La Lan waved his hand again, don't be angry, I don't mean anything else, I just think it's unreasonable. Then La Lan looked over to Steward Lian, I still don't understand Han City, now you suddenly tell me to be the captain of some patrol team, I'm afraid I can't handle it. Bai Ling sulked and turned her face away, HMPH. Making excuses, La Lan was also helpless, he could only smile at her helplessly. The old ancestor looked at Bai Ling and stroked her head, your temper is still as wild as ever. Young Master La is right, he's not a native demon, he really needs to get acquainted. Then, the old ancestor said to La Lan, Young Master La, my granddaughter doesn't have many friends, she really considers you a friend. When Bai Ling heard this, she snorted coldly again, who considers him a friend? But her eyes secretly softened, appearing to tacitly agree with the old ancestor's words. It's just that she had her back to La Lan so he couldn't see it. La Lan slightly pursed his lips, thinking to himself, friends. The old ancestor spoke up, all right, this matter is not urgent, just stay in the manor first. La Lan respectfully said, yes. The moonlight was high, the night sky became glittering and mysterious, and the rooms were lit up at this time. La Lan stood in front of the bathtub and put his hands behind his back, saying, all right, you can withdraw. Beside him were two maids of the old ancestor waiting. The maid in pink spoke up, reporting to the old ancestor, she ordered the servants to take care of Mr. La's bath and change of clothes. Beside her, the maid in blue blushed and lowered her head. La Lan said in a low voice, I'm not used to being served, you can withdraw. I want to be alone in peace and quiet. The old ancestor asked, then you guys, just say that I chased you out. Respectful obedience is better than insincere compliance. The two maids bowed their heads and said yes. Then the servants will take their leave. When the two had left, La Lan vigilantly and silently watched them, ensuring that they had really left. At this time, he relaxed, started taking off his clothes. La Lan lowered himself into the warm water. He let out a breath of relief, enjoying the warm water enveloping his tired body. La Lan smiled with satisfaction. Then he looked up at the ceiling and muttered to himself, finally arrived in the demon country. Next, enemies surround me, one careless move and I'll die. With nowhere to be buried. They will definitely investigate my origins. A fabricated identity. 9 parts truth, 1 part falsehood. They probably won't be able to find out anything. La Lan submerged deep into the bathtub. He thought to himself, but he should still be vigilant at all times. In the warm bathtub, bubbles rose to the surface. At this time, someone approached outside, and reached out to knock on the door. The person called out, Mr. La, are you asleep? Not receiving a response, the person called out again, Mr. La, I heard someone calling. La Lan emerged from the water, thinking to himself, this is what I want, who is looking for me? This voice sounds familiar. He called out, who's out there? The person outside the door. It was actually Ji-Yu. She blushed shyly and said, Mr. La, it's me, the maidservant of Miss Bai Ling. Ji-Yu. La Lan looked out the door in confusion. What is Ji-Yu doing here? Ji-Yu stood in front of the door. She clasped her hands behind her back. Shyly, timidly speaking, Mr. La, I have something I want to say to you. Although a little surprised, La Lan still replied, you, wait a moment. Ji-Yu obediently stood waiting in front of the door. Her face was slightly nervous. Her eyes sparkled as if anticipating something. She lowered her head, her face was a little flushed. Very quickly, La Lan put his clothes back on, and stepped out to open the door. He looked at Ji-Yu and asked, Miss Ji-Yu, it's so late. What brings you here? Ji-Yu slightly lowered her head. Looking up at La Lan, she softly asked, Mr. La Lan, can I come in and talk? La Lan was a little wary. He looked at Ji-yu suspiciously, but still agreed to let her in. He stood to the side. All right, please come in. With La Lan's permission, Ji-yu also slowly stepped inside. La Lan's gaze was still extremely wary. Not taking his eyes off Ji-yu for a moment, he turned around and closed the door. La Lan turned his back to Ji-yu at this time, softly asking, Miss Ji-yu, what exactly is the matter? There was no answer. La Lan could only slowly glance behind him. He widened his eyes in surprise at what he saw. Ji-yu had been standing right behind La Lan since who knows when. She clasped her hands behind her back, her posture extremely shy, her face slightly lowered, looking up at La Lan with sparkling eyes. Her face was already flushed with a rosy color. This distance made La Lan somewhat flustered. He blushed. Slightly retreating, he stammered, Miss Ji-yu, what exactly is the matter with you? Ji-yu got even closer. Her soft voice whispered, Mr. Lane. She pressed close to La Lan, her eyes extremely suggestive. The sudden intimate action made La Lan not dare to move. Feeling extremely difficult to breathe, Ji-yu's full, rounded breasts were tightly pressed against La Lan, without any restraint. Looking at them made La Lan's mind more confused. He blushed. Stammering, he said, Miss Ji-yu, you're too close. Ji-yu shed some of her initial shyness, boldly putting her arm around La Lan's shoulder, and said, from the first time I saw you, I was already captivated by you. She leaned close to La Lan's ear and sweetly murmured, as long as you want. Tonight, I will be yours. Not waiting for La Lan to react, Ji-yu had already stood up straight. She reached out and unbuttoned the buttons on her collar. La Lan swallowed, silently watching the suggestive movements of the beauty. The buttons were unbuttoned deeper and deeper. Her pair of towering peaks became even more visible, rounded and soft, truly making others want to touch them. But then, suddenly, La Lan grabbed Ji-yu's hand, stopping her actions. This action of La Lan also made Ji-yu very surprised. Her eyes widened, her lips parted slightly. La Lan looked at Ji-yu with determination. Then she said in a low voice, Miss Ji-yu, even if, whatever your purpose is, you shouldn't do this. Ji-yu lowered her eyes with some disappointment and said, why am I not attractive enough? Why don't you worry? I'm doing this willingly. Lola frowned, her face showing clear disbelief. Although I don't know what your purpose is in doing this, I'm sure that you admire me is a lie. Speaking of this, Lola moved her face closer to Ji-yu's, because there is no love in your eyes. Lola turned around, opened the door, leaving Ji-yu staring blankly behind her. He pointed his hand outside and said, okay, Miss Ji-yu, it's time for you to leave. Ji-yu's expression changed at this moment, somewhat embarrassed, somewhat unbelievable, as if she had just experienced a shock for the first time. She grimaced and clutched her chest, and without a word, Ji-yu left straightforwardly. Lola just lowered his head and said nothing more. Ji-yu left in the night, and although he didn't know what her purpose was, it was clear that Lola had completely thwarted that purpose. Lola watched Ji-yu's receding figure, silently said nothing, and closed the door. Lola leaned against the door, he thought and muttered, in the middle of the night, Ji-yu came to seduce me. Could it be that she was sent to investigate me? Is it by Ling or that old ancestor? Lola frowned, becoming even more vigilant. Seduction, they came up with this plan in vain. The path of humans and demons is different. How could I make this mistake? Outside the garden, Ji-yu stood silently in a corner. She leaned against the wall, thinking about what had just happened at La La's place. Ji-yu evaluated, it seems that Mr. La is not a superficial person who covets the young lady's beauty. If he sincerely wants to help the young lady, then he is quite trustworthy. Ji-yu lowered her face and pondered. The way he looked at me wasn't fake. In that look I could even see a look of disdain. Then she widened her eyes as if she couldn't believe that she was being disdained. Ji-yu left in a slightly uncomfortable mood. She snorted coldly. HMPH, Lola in the room began to go to bed, concentrating on cultivating his demon core. His eyes were tightly closed and a drop of sweat fell lightly on his cheek. Extremely high concentration, the demonic power emanating around him was a soft blue color. Suddenly, La La's eyes widened and he looked down, feeling a little bewildered at the place where the demon core was located in his body. Wondering why it was like this. The demon core in his body fused with the power of the blood blade. Lola remembered when he was stabbed by the prison guard while escaping. Could it be that the previous attack by the chief prison guard actually helped me to open up some kind of restriction? To answer his own question, Lolo used his demonic power and jumped off the bed. His legs and body began to change, fur and claws were revealed. Lolo transformed, he stood in the middle of the room feeling the power of his body. Lolo had entered the demonized state. He carefully assessed his physical condition. Now I can use the power of immortal non in the demonized state. After checking the state of the demon core, Lolo gradually returned to his human form. He muttered, in every misfortune there is fortune. Possessing a combination of the powerful physical body of a demon and the power of immortal non, my self-defense ability has greatly increased. Lolo returned to his human state. He came to the window and opened it. Lola looked up at the sky, and a little emotion arose in his heart. I don't know how my family at Tsukai Hall is doing. And I'm not there. Xiaomeng must be crying very sadly. The moon was round and full, only La La's heart was missing something. He sighed, missing everyone so much. It was now morning, and the sunlight shone brightly across a vast expanse of sky. Birds perched on branches and chirped happily. Lola was still sound asleep at this time, curled up in his warm blanket. At this time, a rapid knocking on the door came from outside. Lola, wake up. Lola opened his eyes wide. He exclaimed, here it comes again. Why are you knocking on the door? This time it was Bai Ling, she said with interest. Lola, get up quickly. I'll take you out for a walk. Lola lazily opened the door, still yawning. Young miss, I'm injured, I need to rest. She smirked and crossed her arms in front of her chest. Humph, that's it. Your injury is already healed, don't pretend anymore. I'll take you out to broaden your horizons. Without waiting for Lola, Bai Ling directly pulled him out. Hey, I have to get ready first. Bai Ling took Lola to the main street, with tall buildings standing next to each other. The city has a strong modern feel, not much different from the cities of the human race. Bai Ling took Lola to a luxurious restaurant in the city for a meal. There were countless delicious and eye-catching dishes on the table, such as braised fish, fried eggs, and stir-fried vegetables. Lola couldn't help but sigh when he saw the amount of food. Do you have to have such a sumptuous breakfast? Bai Ling just smiled, taking it as something very obvious. Of course, this is our first meal, starting a new life. Let's toast to our new life, Bai Ling said as she raised a glass of golden wine. Lola had no reason to refuse. He also politely raised his glass in response. Cheers. The two glasses clinked together, a sign that a new life for both of them had begun with joy. Bai Ling said again, Lola, thank you. Lola, with his mouth full of food, looked at Bai Ling in confusion. Thank you, what did I do? I told you I didn't do it to save you. Bai Ling rested her hand on her chin, looking at Lola affectionately. It's not for that, but because you taught the steward a lesson for me yesterday. It really helped me vent some anger. She excitedly clenched her fists as if wanting to recreate the scene from yesterday. Your kick yesterday was so cool. Lola waved his hand again. Oh, it's not worth mentioning, I just don't like him. Speaking of this, Lola couldn't help but be curious, but I have a question I'm very curious about. You are the young lady, he is a servant, even if he is the manager, he shouldn't be so rude to you, right? It feels like you can't do anything to him. I'm just curious, if it's inconvenient for you, you don't have to answer. Hearing this, Bai Ling just let out a long sigh. Bai Ling sighed and lowered her eyes. She lowered her face slightly, and said in a low voice, let's eat. After that, the two lowered their faces and ate in silence, no one mentioning the topic again. At this time, a waiter came in and said politely, Sir, Madam, mushroom scallop soup. He politely put one hand behind his back, and the other hand carefully placed 2 bowls of steaming soup on the table, inviting them to enjoy. Lola excitedly picked up the bowl of soup and opened the lid. The fragrance wafted out, stimulating the gastric juices. He exclaimed in admiration, it smells so good. But then his expression suddenly changed. La La's eyes darkened. Couldn't help but be surprised by what he had just seen. Inside the bowl of soup, a familiar symbol was faintly visible, a red and black eye symbol. That was exactly the symbol of the Secret Affairs Department. La La's hand holding the bowl of soup trembled slightly. The bowl of soup was tilted, as if it was about to spill. Bai Ling noticed La La's unusual behavior and asked worriedly, Lola, are you okay? Lola regained his composure, closed the lid of the bowl of soup and replied, oh, it's nothing. My hand suddenly trembled a little. Then, he looked up at the waiter and asked, where is the restroom? The waiter smiled, let me take you there. Lola quietly followed the waiter out. The waiter had a meaningful smile on his face. Lola worriedly thought to himself, the Secret Affairs Department is getting involved everywhere. The waiter maintained his expression. He led Lola to the men's restroom. The waiter stepped forward to open the door, then he stood aside, respectfully bowing his head and saying, please, Mr. Lane. La La's eyes became extremely vigilant. He slowly stepped inside, his heart filled with anxiety, not knowing what was waiting for him ahead. The waiter carefully reminded him, the second stall from the inside. Lola glanced at the man. He looked up at Lola and said meaningfully, nice to meet you, Special Envoy. Lola ignored the man and just stepped inside according to the secret instructions. After Lola stepped in, the waiter quickly closed the door. He also put a repair sign in front of the door, preventing unrelated people from entering. The waiter carefully stood guard in front of the door. La La's eyes were vigilant, observing. The surrounding restroom looked like any other normal restroom, but the atmosphere was a bit gloomy. Lola walked to stall number 2 as reported. He hesitated a little, still standing in front of the stall without entering immediately. Lola thought to himself with some anxiety, wondering what would be inside. A contact. Then he slowly grabbed the doorknob, carefully turned the doorknob, and finally the door was opened. Lola frowned. The scene in front of him was not what he had imagined. There was absolutely no one inside, empty, just a toilet. Next to it was a wall-mounted phone that looked quite suspicious. Lola looked at the toilet in question and muttered, "Is it the desk?" At this time, he glanced to the side, taking the strange phone into his sight. The phone suddenly rang at this moment. Lola was surprised, his eyes widened. Sure enough, he carefully picked up the phone. "Hello, who is this?" The voice on the other end of the line was none other than Lan Muyuan, Luo Lan's nightmare. She crossed her legs, fiddled with her phone, and said with a smile, "Long time no see, little hunting dog." Luo Lan couldn't hide the disgust on his face when he heard Lan Muyuan's voice. She then said from the phone, "Luo Lan, congratulations on being alive, well done, worthy of being a hunting dog personally selected by me." Luo Lan frowned, glanced at the phone receiver. "Congratulations," he said with a disgusted voice that was already a little angry. "Your congratulations mean I almost died on the way to escape." Then she laughed, "Ha ha, don't be so aggressive. This is also part of the plan." Luo Lan became even more angry, his face darkening. "Killing me is part of your plan." Lan Muyuan still explained calmly, not caring much about Luo Lan's dissatisfaction. "In order to gain trust, sometimes this move is an indispensable step. You completed it very well. It seems that demon woman trusts you very much." Luo Lan was too lazy to argue, and just asked indifferently, "What do I have to do next?" Lan Muyuan replied, "Do nothing. Just live in Han City like a real demon, and climb high, climb to a high position among the demons. That's when I'll start using you." This order surprised Luo Lan. Luo Lan shouted into the phone in the face of this bizarre order, "What kind of mission is this? How is the high center possible? If I can't do it, won't I be unable to return?" Lan Muyuan didn't care much, she just replied indifferently, "So try your best. This is not a negotiation with you, but an order." Not letting Luo Lan say anything more, Lan Muyuan hung up the phone. Under Luo Lan's confused and angry eyes, Luo Lan clenched his fist and cursed angrily, "Damn it." Luo Lan came out after receiving the order. The waiter glanced at Luo Lan and said, "Are you out? Bai Ling is still waiting for you." Luo Lan didn't say much, just left quietly, returning to Bai Ling's side. But then he stopped, turned his head to look at the waiter, and asked, "How many people like you are there in Han City?" The waiter said with a smile, "This subordinate is not clear. But Lord Lan said, our power is also for you to use. If you need anything, come here for a meal." Luo turned his back, put his hands in his pockets, and replied indifferently, "Got it." The aura at this moment had changed a bit. Luo Lan returned to where Bai Ling was waiting for him. Luo Lan still leisurely put his hands in his pockets and said to Bai Ling, "Sorry to keep you waiting." Luo Lan's eyes were a little different, full of confidence and attractiveness. He gently ruffled his hair and then lowered his eyes to look at where Bai Ling was sitting. Today, Luo Lan suddenly seems to be more handsome than usual. This sudden change in temperament surprised Bai Ling, and she shyly blushed and looked at Luo Lan. Luo Lan looked at Bai Ling with a complicated look, thinking to himself, "There's no other way. If I want to climb high in a short time, I have to make sacrifices." Thinking this, he grinned and said, "How about it, take me to walk around Han City?" Bai Ling's face was still flushed, and she stammered, Okay. The two left the restaurant and began to walk together on the street. Couldn't help but secretly glance to the side every now and then. The mood was a bit dazed. The eyes looking at Luo Lan were also full of affection. Next to Luo Lan, Bai Ling kept stroking her hair, her face flushed, acting unnaturally. She asked, "Where are we going? Or just walk around aimlessly?" Luo Lan saw this and immediately glanced over, replying, "Let's go to Fire God Street to stroll around." Bai Ling asked in confusion, "Fire God Street? Why do you want to go there?" Then she widened her eyes in surprise as if she realized something. She smiled and then reached out to poke Luo Lan's chest, teasingly asking, "It's not that you're moved by the butler's suggestion, is it?" Luo Lan denied, "Of course not. It's just that I'm suddenly curious about this place." Bai Ling was still full of suspicion, staring at Luo Lan, questioning, "Really?" He turned his face away, replying, "Of course." Bai Ling was still a little suspicious, but since Luo Lan had already suggested it, she couldn't refuse. "I'll take you to see the real Fire God Street." The two of them went together to the place called Fire God Street. The scene here was a bit opposite to the bustling scene in the city center just now. Homeless people were lying all over the place. The atmosphere was much gloomier. A little demon child with horns on his head walked crookedly on the dirty road. He hugged his stomach, his face a bit gaunt in front of an old building. A large crowd was gathering below the building, setting up a red platform. Around it, there were several demons in black suits standing guard on the platform. A demon was speaking loudly, "Whoever wants to buy medicine, please line up." This demon was wearing a purple suit, with a yellow cravat. His ears were pointed like an elf, and his hair was slicked back with gel very stylishly. He wore a microphone and said loudly, Nine-Headed Bird Pharmaceutical Group is the largest pharmaceutical group in the demon country. This time, being able to come to Fire God Street to sell medicine is also the high levels care for the difficulties of the people of Fire God Street. I hope everyone is grateful. He ordered the demons below to start selling medicine. Below, the crowd gathered seemed to be residents of Fire God Street. They looked at the people in suits with suspicious eyes. Everyone seemed to be frowning and not very happy with this appearance. Wandering through the crowd was the gaunt little boy with horns, walking on the street just now. In his hand he held a small bill, seeming to be waiting in line to buy medicine. From the crowd, the boy ran to the front, holding a wad of crumpled money in his hand. The boy looked at the green demon, his eyes shining with urgency. I want to buy medicine. The green demon grinned, very good. You are our first customer. The green demon bent down to look at the boy, saying, what kind of medicine do you want to buy? He raised his big round eyes, earnestly saying, my mother has a very serious case of malaria. I want to buy antibiotics. The green demon smiled and raised his hand with 5 fingers, replying to the boy, antibiotics for malaria. Sure. 1 dose is 500 yuan. The boy's face darkened, and he exclaimed in panic, 500 yuan. Why don't I have so much money? Can you lower the price a bit? Or pay in installments? The green demon withdrew his smile. He looked at the boy indifferently, not knowing what he was thinking. He said coldly, we are not a charity, little brat. The door of the pharmacy is always open. Wait for you to collect enough money and then come. The boy burst into tears, but if I don't have medicine, my mother will die. The green demon didn't care much. He turned his back and glanced at the boy, grinning, little friend, people die every day in this world. Your mother is nothing special. He turned to the crowd below and said, anyone else want to buy medicine? The crowd was silent. They gave him unfriendly glances. They began to whisper to each other, and then the crowd began to leave. We can't afford it. Let's go, let's go, let's go, it's too expensive. The green demon saw everyone leaving and frowned in complaint, this bunch of poor ghosts. Why are they all leaving? At this time, another person appeared behind him, seemingly a fishman demon. He clasped his hands behind his back, and said gently, Director Long, don't be angry. Then he took off his hat, revealing his bald head. He smiled, these penniless poor people must be going to the black market. Asked again, black market, why haven't you banned the black market yet, Captain Ma? The old fishman wrinkled his face slightly and said, Director Long, I have to correct you a bit, it's Deputy Captain Ma. Actions need to be approved by the director and the captain, I don't have that authority. Director Long said in a low voice, wasn't the deputy captain promoted to captain at the beginning of this year? The group already said a word about this in advance, what kind of business is your director Liu doing? The fishman explained, it is said that the Qingqiu family is obstructing this matter. They seized the position of captain, but they haven't sent anyone to take office yet. The green demon frowned, Qingqiu. He looked into the distance and asked, what is Qingqiu plotting with this arrangement? The fishman squinted, although Fire God Street is a gathering place for the poor and lowly, it occupies nearly half the area of Han City. 60% of the population lives here, and the forces within it are extremely complex. What can't be done outside can be done here without any scruples, the illegal profits are huge. The green demon nodded, I understand, this is also the reason why the company wants to go deep into this place. He smiled, revealing a fierce expression, 60% of the population, millions of demons, if we take over the medical and pharmaceutical resources here, we will take over this stream of power. The fishman smiled, the medicine sellers in Fire God Street are not easy to deal with. Director Long grinned, Captain Ma, this matter depends on you. I know He Sen, your old captain, the second oldest of the 3 He brothers, is currently the deputy director of the patrol bureau. He stepped forward, standing opposite Deputy Captain Ma. Haven't the 3 brothers always wanted to divide a share in the pharmaceutical business? Tell them the company agrees. He made a request, but there must not be a single counterfeit drug appearing in Fire God Street again. The fishman happily bowed his head in agreement, understood. Back to the little demon boy just now, he failed to buy medicine and walked dejectedly on the street. From an alley next to the road, a young man saw him and asked, need medicine? The voice attracted the boy's attention. He raised his head happily, medicine, do you have medicine? The red-haired young man stopped, smoking a cigarette and smiling, you're coming back from the opening of that pharmacy, right? How is it, couldn't afford his medicine? The boy sadly recalled what happened just now, their medicine is too expensive. If I buy it, my family will have to eat dirt for the remaining half year. Hearing the boy say that, he immediately laughed, revealing fangs on his lower jaw. Let me ask you, have you ever heard of counterfeit medicine? The boy widened his eyes in wonder, what is counterfeit medicine? The redhead laughed mockingly, UF*CK. You're really a kid living in Fire God Street who doesn't even know what counterfeit medicine is. He bent down to look at him and explained, "Counterfeit medicine is fake medicine, but the effect is exactly the same as real medicine, kid. But the price is several times cheaper." The boy heard that there was cheaper medicine and his eyes lit up. "Really? I need antibiotics to treat malaria. I only have this much money." He fiddled with the bill and some loose change, counting it over and over. The redhead looked at the small change and clicked his tongue, a little short. The boy suddenly knelt down, he crawled on the ground, began to sob and beg, "Please, my mother really needs this medicine to save her life. I only have this much money, please save my mother." The redhead hesitated a bit. The boy still looked at him with pleading eyes. The child's eyes were as clear as bright stars, shimmering with a few tears. He thought for a moment and nodded, "All right, I can sell it to you for this amount." The boy was overjoyed, his eyes filled with hope. "Thank you so much, thank you." But the redhead added, "But you have to help me too." The boy covered his mouth and coughed. He widened his eyes and asked, "What can I do to help you?" The redhead smiled and said, "Dispense medicine. I need a pharmacy assistant to dispense medicine for me." The boy looked up with a puzzled expression. "Dispense medicine?" On the sparsely populated road in Fire God Street, Bai Ling and Luo Lan strode side by side, absent-mindedly looking at the surrounding scenery. Luo Lan scanned around. Around this seemingly desolate neighborhood, surrounded by the Heng River, countless homeless demons were sitting listlessly on the side of the road, creating a gloomy atmosphere, even though it was morning. A middle-aged female demon, clutching a bag, walked down the street. Her face looked worried, and a horn grew out of her forehead. She didn't notice that someone was approaching right behind her. It was a male demon with dark green skin, a long nose, and pointed, elf-like ears, his face clearly showing a cunning look. The strange green-skinned guy successfully attracted Luo Lan's attention. As expected, he targeted the bag of the middle-aged female demon and ran to snatch it. The woman couldn't react in time, she could only helplessly raise her hand in the air. She panicked and started shouting, "Ah! Robber!" The robber, running past Bai Ling and Luo Lan, the two of them glanced at him at the same time. The woman was sweating profusely, helplessly watching her bag being stolen in broad daylight. She kept shouting "Robber," but the woman didn't receive any response. No one came forward to help the poor woman. Then she found two police officers in a corner of the street. A glimmer of hope flashed in her eyes. The two police officers stood in the corner of the street, holding cigarettes and puffing away. They were excitedly discussing yesterday's gambling game. "Did you lose a lot gambling yesterday?" "Don't mention it, damn it, lost everything." The woman ran up to the two police officers in a flurry and reported, "Police, my bag was stolen." Then, contrary to her expectations, the police officer with the shorter hair just glanced at her and grunted. She enthusiastically pointed in the direction of the robber, waiting for some help. Running in the other direction, the police officer showed clear disinterest and only said casually, "Okay, I know, go to the patrol station to report the case and make a statement." The woman was extremely anxious upon receiving the unexpected answer, but the two police officers didn't seem interested in her story. They just glared at her and whispered as if humming, "What, we are doing things according to procedure, rest assured, we will inform you of the results immediately." Then the long-haired police officer, whose hair fell over his eyes, added, "And if you don't leave, you will be arrested for obstructing law enforcement, understand?" The woman was frightened when she heard this. She trembled a little more, helpless, she turned and left. The woman's back clearly showed sadness. The two police officers were still carefree, looking at each other and laughing as if nothing had happened. Luo Lan and Bai Ling looked at each other again, seeing the sad and helpless expression of the woman whose bag was stolen. Bai Ling turned to Luo Lan at this time, her face with a bit of mockery, and asked, "What's wrong?" Luo Lan was a little embarrassed. "Wow, I didn't expect the situation here to be so bad," he exclaimed, broadening his horizons. Then a transaction was taking place. Someone was offering a strip of special cold medicine for 50 yen coins, 8 pills. A young man with a parted hairstyle, with a strange black mark under his right eye, was taking the strip of medicine with money. His expression was satisfied. "I'll take it." The person trading the medicine was actually the young demon looking for antibiotics for his mother. He said happily, "If you need more, you can tell me anytime. You know where to find me, right?" The quick transaction ended. The young man with the parted hairstyle also left, and the boy successfully got the money, carefully putting it into his pocket. He watched the young man disappear into the distance, happily summarizing the results. "So far, we've closed 8 deals today." His eyes were shining, different from the despair he felt when he left Director Long's pharmacy yesterday. At this rate, he'll soon be able to pay for his mother's medicine. The young man with the parted hairstyle got into a luxurious black car. Inside were many people wearing black suits, looking very mysterious. He happily reported, "It's done." The black-suited driver glanced over and asked, "Did you get the medicine?" The parted hair guy happily showed off his success. "Rest assured, got both the person and the goods. Report to the captain to arrest the person." The boy still didn't know that a conspiracy was being set up, still diligently standing. Selling medicine on the street, need medicine. At this moment, Bai Ling and Luo Lan also passed by the boy. He happily greeted, do you need medicine, sir? We have all kinds of medicine, guaranteed cheaper than outside the store. Luo Lan seemed curious about the boy's appearance and greeting. He raised an eyebrow and asked, medicine? Luo Lan turned to Bai Ling and said, I've only seen vegetables being sold on the street, never medicine being sold on the street before. Is this how medicine is bought in Fire God Street? Then he turned to the boy and asked, little boy, is your medicine fake medicine? The boy crossed his arms in front of his chest, looked at Luo Lan, and then he quickly denied, our medicine is indeed fake medicine, but the effects are the same and the price is several times cheaper. His tone was extremely confident, inviting, the medicine in the pharmacy is real, but you may not be able to afford it. Bai Ling glanced and smiled, saying, it seems that fake medicine is really rampant in Fire God Street, huh? Luo Lan was curious, fake medicine, it seems you know about this too. Bai Ling explained gently, Fire God Street has several million households, how much medicine is needed in a year? But in the past, this place was a mixed bag, no regular pharmacy dared to open a shop and do business properly. But it seems that this year, a pharmaceutical group has set its sights on this piece of fat, such a huge profit, who wouldn't want to share a piece of the pie? Right? Luo Lan also smiled, so that also includes your family. Bai Ling didn't deny this and said frankly, of course, Han City was founded by my ancestors, so the Qingque family naturally manages everything. Then, she glanced at Luo Lan and suggested, if you come here, you will represent Qingque, what do you think? Luo Lan hesitated when he heard this, and he was really considering this matter in his heart. But at this moment, a large van suddenly stopped in front of them, attracting the attention of everyone around. Both Bai Ling and Luo Lan stared intently at the car that appeared suddenly. Even the boy selling fake medicine couldn't help but be curious. A group of police officers rushed out of the car, their faces fierce, and they rushed down like arrows with weapons in their hands. They aimed directly at the boy selling medicine and rushed straight towards him. The boy was startled when he saw a group of police officers surrounding him, and he screamed, ah! A police officer rushed over, wanting to hit the boy with the baton in his hand. Before he could react, he swung down hard, and the blow landed squarely on his face. A large mouthful of blood spurted from the mouth of the boy selling medicine. He was in pain, lying prostrate on the ground, with a large wound on his face, showing red bone. The police officer didn't stop. He stepped forward, grabbed his hair, and pulled him up fiercely, causing him to scream in pain, ouch! Ouch! The boy struggled non-stop as he was controlled by the police officers. Let me go! Let me go! Luo Lan frowned, what are these people doing? Bai Ling explained indifferently, they are the patrol team of Fire God Street. Luo Lan was surprised, the patrol team is even more brutal than the prison guards of Xianwu Kingdom. Then Bai Ling looked ahead and reminded, don't say anything, their boss is here. Another black car drove up and stopped in front of the chaotic crowd. Bai Ling and Luo Lan silently observed the situation again. Then the parted hair guy, who bought the medicine from the boy earlier, got out enthusiastically, opened the car door, and said respectfully, Captain, please take your time. Stepping out of the car was Deputy Captain Ma of the Fire God Street Patrol Brigade, Ma Qianba. Then the parted hair guy enthusiastically said to Ma Qianba, Captain, it's all thanks to your scheming and planning, we've caught the person. Ma Qianba glanced at the parted hair guy and said in a low voice, how many times have I told you it's Deputy Captain? The parted hair guy knew he had misspoke, and was a little worried, sweating. He stood up straight, made a serious salute and said loudly, report. In the heart of Qiansai, you are the captain. Apart from you, anyone who comes to be the captain is trash to me. He was a member of the 1st Brigade under the Fire God Street Patrol Bureau, Qiansai. Ma Qianba glanced at him and then he smiled, revealing his teeth with a satisfied look, and said, your mother is really unlucky to be talking shit. Lola looked to the other side and asked who that guy was. Bai Ling replied, I don't know about this kind of insignificant character. Ma Qianba clasped his hands behind his back and slowly walked to the boy who was being beaten. He bent down to look at him and asked, is it him? The boy looked up at Ma Qianba a little puzzled and asked, why are you arresting me? He held up a strip of medicine that looked a little familiar. He said in a low voice, this strip of medicine is yours, right? The boy squinted at what he was holding. Seemed to have recognized it. Not good. Immediately came to Ma Qianba's side and whispered, Captain, what to do? This kid didn't even have time to finish his sentence. Ma Qianba threw him a cold glance, his face full of displeasure. Seeing this expression, Xiansai quickly covered his mouth, his face pale, not daring to say anything more. Ma Qianba turned his gaze back to Luo Lan, his heart full of doubt. Is this kid really the new captain? Luo Lan still didn't retract his determined gaze. Beside him was Bai Ling, still quietly watching the situation. At this moment, Ma Qianba noticed Bai Ling. He saw the ears on her head, and Ma Chinba thought to himself, Fox clan. Then he seemed to recognize the Qingqiu family. He respectfully clasped his hands towards Bai Ling and asked, "Are you a noble from Qingqiu?" But Bai Ling only glanced at him lightly and said disdainfully, "Are you worthy to talk to me?" This sentence and arrogant attitude stunned Ma Chinba into silence. Bai Ling coldly asked, "What kind of official business are you carrying out?" Ma Chinba lowered his head slightly, a little sweat breaking out on his forehead, and answered anxiously, "This time, we received news that someone is selling counterfeit medicine here. Mama specially led his subordinates here to arrest them." Bai Ling raised her eyes and pursed her lips, appearing interested in his story. "Interesting. Am I misremembering? Isn't your Fire God Street usually full of counterfeit medicine sales?" Then she smirked slightly. "What's wrong? Is the sun rising in the west?" He tried to maintain his composure and replied, "That's because Fire God Street never had a legitimate pharmacy before." Then he lowered his head and sighed, feigning grief. "Alas, Fire God Street is too chaotic. Since the fire 50 years ago, no pharmacy has wanted to sell medicine in our area." He glanced elsewhere, his nose turning red, and began to let a few drops of tears fall, whimpering. The leaders of the patrol bureau also didn't prohibit the sale of counterfeit medicine out of consideration for the people of Fire God Street. This is all the kindness of the great leaders. But now the situation is different. After saying this, he looked towards Bai Ling, the tycoon in the pharmaceutical industry of Jingchen. The pharmacy under the Jiutou Pharmaceutical Group has officially set foot in Fire God Street. This is good news for the people of Fire God Street. Although he said it was for the people, Ma Chinba's face couldn't hide his cunning satisfaction. He continued, "Now there is a legitimate pharmacy selling medicine." Ma Chinba glanced at the boy from before. Those who sell counterfeit medicine can no longer continue to exist. The boy kneeling on the ground, upon hearing this, his face became distracted, unable to hide the fear and worry in his eyes. Ma Chinba didn't stop. He said, "According to the laws of the empire, those who smuggle food, salt, medicine, or iron will be executed. I am simply following the regulations." Luolan couldn't listen anymore. He raised his eyebrows in annoyance and said, "It seems you don't intend to give me any face." Ma Chinba smiled and shrugged, "There's no way around it. I am simply following the regulations." Luolan narrowed his eyes at him. "Then what if I, as the captain of the patrol team, insist on taking this kid away?" Ma Chinba smirked again. "I'm afraid that won't do. I haven't received any notice from the bureau yet. So, theoretically, your identity is still somewhat suspicious. I can't hand over the suspect to you." He clasped his hands respectfully and bowed his head. "When you take office, I will definitely be the first to congratulate you. Mama still has official business to attend to. I'll take my leave." Ma Chinba basically didn't take Luolan seriously at all. He glanced behind him and ordered, "Take him away." The two soldiers who heard the order immediately pulled the boy up and prepared to take him away. They escorted him onto the vehicle. Once in the car, he kept struggling, "Let me go." Bai Ling looked at them with concern, wanting to step forward, but a hand grabbed her wrist, stopping her. It was Luolan. He looked at Bai Ling and said, "Don't go." Bai Ling was a little angry, glared at Luolan and asked, "Can you even tolerate this?" Luolan was nonchalant. "What else can I do? There will be many more things like this in the future. Are we going to rely on your family to step in and help me every time?" Ma Chinba's vehicle and the vehicle escorting the boy were rolling. They drove away. Luolan looked at the convoy and said indifferently, "Whether we save that child or not is not important. I just wanted to clarify my identity and create a little ripple." With that, he turned to look at Bai Ling and smiled. "Next, the one who will be uneasy is him. Hearing about the Qingqiu family and not wanting to help to win me over." He leaned close to Bai Ling's ear and whispered, "The forces behind him are definitely not on the same side as your family." Then he stood up straight and looked towards the convoy that had disappeared. "So, next I will play with them." Slowly returning to the Qingqiu family's residence, inside the old Qingqiu ancestors' separate courtyard, 2 cups of tea were placed neatly on the table. Beside them was a hat that looked like the uniform of some organization. In the reception room of the separate courtyard, the old ancestor sat in the middle, with Luolan and Bai Ling beside him. The only difference was that Luolan wasn't wearing his usual casual clothes, but instead a formal black uniform. The old ancestor said gently, "Young Luo, this time going to Fire God Street to take office, you must be careful. It is very chaotic there, like a chaotic world giving birth to heroes. The more chaotic the place, the easier it is to develop." Luolan respectfully clasped his hands and "Thank you for the reminder. I will try my best to work hard." The old ancestor narrowed his eyes slightly and praised, "Good, remember to visit home often. Qingqiu will always be your home." Luolan bowed his head. "Your order is understood." A hidden smile appeared on his lips. At another separate courtyard, Lian the steward stood neatly in front of a familiar door. He clasped his hands and respectfully reported, "Master, Luolan has set off. He has informed the bureau chief. Will you be meeting him?" Ao Luo didn't seem interested. His hand was still diligently holding a brush writing calligraphy. Don't meet him. A worm can't stir up any waves. He's not worth me wasting my time on yet. A sinister red glint flashed in Ao Luo's eyes. If he wants to rise like a kite in the wind, he must prove his value first. For now, let's see if he can stir up the water in Fire God Street. Already, Bai Ling brought Luo Lan to the gate to say goodbye. She glanced at him and said with a smile, "Suddenly I feel a little admiration for you. Fire God Street is a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. I didn't expect you would actually want to go there." Luo Lan only answered firmly, "The millions of people in Fire God Street can't all be demons. If they can live there, so can I." Bai Ling happily put her arm around his shoulder. "Don't worry. I've arranged everything properly. There are people there to meet you." Luo Lan was curious. "Who is it?" Bai Ling said mysteriously, "You'll know when you meet them. At the patrol bureau guarding Fire God Street." Luo Lan sat in the waiting room, sitting up straight, his eyes always alert and looking around. He looked down slightly, his mind wandering and waiting. After a while, a soldier came out and announced, "Luo Lan, the bureau chief wants to see you." Luo Lan quickly stood up. He placed his hand across his chest and loudly shouted, "Luo Lan, entering to meet the one called bureau chief." Luo Lan loudly shouted, "Report, greetings bureau chief." Luo Lan reporting for duty. This bureau chief was a demon, with reddish skin, a pair of large horns on his head, and a large mustache on his face. His eyes were strong and full of imposing manner. His name was Zhao Wuji, the bureau chief of the patrol bureau in Fire God Street. He looked up at Luo Lan and smiled with satisfaction. "Young man, not bad, very spirited." Zhao Wuji raised the file in his hand, put on his glasses with the other hand, and began to ponder. He carefully looked at the information in the file. Zhao Wuji, reading in a low voice, "Luo Lan, 21 years old, 70 kilograms, 1.80 meters, originally from Mo City, no information about parents." His eyes were a little doubtful at this moment, asking for information about you. "Why is it so blank?" Luo Lan was a little flustered but still maintained his composure and answered, "I used to make a living in the Xinwu Kingdom, so the records here probably can't be found." Hearing this, Zhao Wuji nodded, Right. I also heard that you saved the young lady of Qingqiu, right?" Luo Lan scratched his head in embarrassment. It's hard to say who saved who. Zhao Wuji took off his glasses and said gently, "I also have some connections with Qingqiu, so you don't need to be too nervous." He raised his hand and gestured like a gun, then asked if he knew how to use a gun. Luo Lan lowered his head slightly and answered that he couldn't say he knew, but he would try to practice. Zhao Wuji raised his coffee cup and took a sip, carefully instructing, "Now you are the captain of a brigade, you must build good relationships with the members of your team." Luo Lan again placed his hand in front of his chest and loudly shouted, "Understood." Zhao Wuji then lowered his voice, "Fire God Street is quite special. Although it belongs to the jurisdiction of Han City, it has a very large degree of autonomy." Luo Lan naturally realized the situation after his tour yesterday. He silently thought about something. Zhao Wuji especially instructed further, "Many races live together in this place, violence often occurs, the environment is extremely complicated, you must be careful when working. As a patrolman, you must adapt to this place." Luo Lan's eyes were firm, and he answered confidently, "Bureau Chief, please rest assured. I came to help you reduce troubles." Zhao Wuji raised his head slightly, his eyes a little challenging. "Very good, then I will keep my eyes on you and see." But then his expression suddenly changed. At this moment, Zhao Wuji looked extremely fierce and gave a warning, "But I want to remind you, no matter who is behind you, in my place you must abide by my rules. If one day you become a problem, then I will deal with you without mercy." Luo Lan wasn't afraid either, his eyes were mostly strong as he answered, "Your subordinate understands." Zhao Wuji didn't continue to make things difficult for him. "All right, there is your subordinate at the door. She will lead you to Brigade 1. Luo Lan respectfully raised his hand to his chest and said, "Subordinate takes his leave." Then he opened the door and went out to meet the subordinate that was mentioned. At this moment, a familiar voice rose, "You're finally out." Luo Lan was a little startled. He widened his eyes in surprise and looked at the person in front of him. Why are you here?" The subordinate that was mentioned was unexpectedly Yu. She wore her uniform, her face smiling brightly as she said, "Captain Luo, from now on, I'm your subordinate." Luo Lan and Yu stood facing each other. Luo Lan couldn't help but wonder, "Aren't you Bai Ling's personal maid?" Yu nodded, "That's right, but I was also born on Huishen Street." Luo Lan glanced at her and asked, "You were born on Huishen Street?" Yu replied again, "That's right, I grew up here since I was little, I'm extremely familiar with this place." With that, Yu went behind Luo Lan. She pushed him forward, "How about it, should I take you for a walk around?" Luo Lan didn't object, just asked, "Are you very familiar with this place?" She happily replied, "That's right. My older brother used to be a patrol officer here. I used to come here a lot when I was little." Luolan was curious. Your brother was also a patrol officer. So why didn't you? Before Luolan could finish, Jiyu interrupted. You want to say why my brother was a patrol officer and I'm a maid, right? Luolan was a little embarrassed. I am a bit curious. After all, patrol officers in this area probably make a decent amount. Hearing this, Jiyu just lowered her head, her face clearly sad. Then she sighed sadly. I consider him already dead. Luolan was extremely surprised. Why would you say that? Jiyu lowered her head again. She avoided him slightly, turning her face away. Luolan looked at Jiyu's expression, frowning slightly as he asked, did I say something wrong? Jiyu shook her head, sadly saying, no, it's not that. If you hadn't said it, I probably would have almost forgotten about him. Luolan replied, it seems that the relationship between you and your brother isn't very good. Luolan smiled and suggested, you can invite your brother here. I'll treat him to a meal to help you smooth things over. At this point, Jiyu explained the situation. Years ago, when my brother was participating in an operation, he suddenly disappeared, leaving me and my mother behind. And since then, we've had no news of him. Luolan's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He lowered his eyes, softly empathizing. I understand that feeling. Jiyu looked up at him. Have you also lost family members? Luolan nodded, glancing at her. Almost. I've witnessed too many scenes of separation since I was little. He gently placed his hand on Jiyu's shoulder. Luolan comforted her softly, don't think about sad things anymore. Luolan smiled and made a warm suggestion, if you don't mind, I'll be your older brother from now on. This suggestion made Jiyu be stunned. Her eyes widened as she looked at Luolan. She didn't have any reason to refuse, so she put her hands behind her back and smiled brightly. Then please take care of me, Brother Luo. She excitedly grabbed Luolan's hand to leave. Brother Luo, let me take you for a walk. Luolan didn't refuse either, letting her pull him along. The two walked side by side along the corridor. Jiyu pointed to the room stretching out and introduced them. In front are the records room, the medical room, and the army. The two stopped at the army. Inside the room was an extremely modern and advanced system of firearms equipment for combat. Captain Luo was also quite surprised when he looked inside and exclaimed, I didn't expect the patrol bureau in a poor district to have such abundant firepower. Jiyu explained gently from the side. Then you don't know yet. Although Huishan Street looks like a slum, the illegal profits here are very large. All kinds of gang forces pay a huge tribute to the Patrol Bureau every year. This money is all used to increase the firepower of the Patrol Bureau so that it can contain those forces. The male lead nodded. That makes sense. Suddenly, a loud laugh attracted Luolan's attention. He turned his head to look at the source of the sound, a little surprised. The sound seemed to be coming from another room not far away. Luolan asked curiously, what place is that, making so much noise? Jiyu looked at him a little embarrassed and replied, that's your 1st Division. Captain Luo couldn't help but be surprised and exclaimed to her. In the 1st Division's room, the Huishan Street Patrol team, black and red playing cards were being dealt on the table, and there were a few cigarette butts scattered around. Captain Luolan and Jiyu stood outside looking at the extremely improper scene inside. Some were puffing on cigarettes, some were putting their feet up on the table, leaning back and gambling. Chen Sai, with a cigarette in his mouth, said disgustedly, Captain, does that new kid want to hold us down for real? Ma Qianba stared intently at the cards in his hand, replying indifferently, that's right, what else would it be? A demon with dark green skin and 2 horns on his crew-cut head continued. Anyway, I only acknowledge our boss. Chen Sai immediately enthusiastically echoed. Me too, boss, let's fight him to the end. A 7 of diamonds card was placed down. Ma Qianba raised his hand and waved it in the air, appeasing the soldiers. Don't worry, you guys. He smiled smugly and said, Director Heisen already knows about this. A group of people were gathered around the cards. Ma Qianba narrowed his eyes, saying with some dissatisfaction, I've worked hard all these years, if not for merit, then for effort. He lowered his head slightly, affirming strongly, the position of captain must be mine. Without stopping, he added, it can only be mine. Chen Sai enthusiastically cheered when he heard this. Captain, we support you. He turned his face to the side, spitting the cigarette he was smoking on the floor. Coincidentally, the cigarette bounced a few times and rolled to the feet of the captain that these people were talking about. Chen Sai then noticed that there was someone else here. He looked up at Luolan who had been standing there for a while, his eyes sternly and coldly looking at them. By reflex, Chen Sai jumped up, putting his hand across his chest and yelling, Captain! But before he could finish speaking, he quickly retracted his words, his face turning ashen as if he had swallowed a mouthful of poison. He looked hesitantly towards Ma Qianba, who was also silently watching. Chen Sai said hesitantly, stammering, Captain Ma. Oh. Ma Qianba didn't argue, just silently pulled his leg back. He calmly put both feet on the floor, standing up straight. Then, he reached out and patted his hands. Ma Qianba smiled, but his eyes were full of mockery, looking at Captain Luo and saying, "Welcome, a warm welcome to Captain's inauguration." Luo Lan stood watching as if watching a play. His eyes remained firm and cold, not revealing any sign of weakness. Ma Qianba took the opportunity to press forward. He turned and shouted, "Everyone!" Everyone in the room slowly clapped like a machine at this time, not showing any sign of joy at all. Luo Lan of course understood these petty tricks to provoke people. This person wasn't angry, just smiled lightly and said, "Vice Captain Ma, are you giving me a preemptive strike?" Ma Qianba pretended not to understand, scratching his head, "Really? I didn't mean that at all." Captain Luo revealed a complacent smile. He turned to Qian Sai and shouted, "Qian Sai." The loud call startled him, and he looked blankly at Luo Lan. Continuing, "You've been in office for 5 years, still an absolute warrior, earning 400 yuan, with a blind mother and 2 younger sisters at home. This job is everything you rely on to survive, right?" Qian Sai listened but didn't respond, looking at Luo Lan with some confusion. Not stopping there, Luo Lan looked behind him, frowning and saying, "And the people behind, Zhao Hu, Liang Hangsheng, earning 320 yuan to support 3 children. Wang Chong, Liang Hangsheng is 280 yuan, his left leg is disabled. Stands to make a living." One after another, the people whose names were called all looked extremely worried. The atmosphere in the First Division's room began to calm down a bit. Luo Lan continued to speak, "Now, you fierce man," pointing to himself, showing an arrogant and confident expression, "whoever is willing to stand by me is my brother. If I have meat, I certainly won't let you guys only have soup." The atmosphere in the first company's room became extremely tense. Everyone's face showed obvious worry and confusion, including Qian Sai. His face was wrinkled with embarrassment and there was some sweat on his forehead. Qian Sai looked at Ma Qianba with concern and hesitated, "Brother Ma." Ma Qianba glanced at him, looking displeased. Luo Lan continued in a somber tone, "Everyone, I have no patience." Hearing this, Qian Sai quickly bowed to Ma Qianba, "Brother Ma, I'm sorry." He slowly stepped behind Luo Lan. It seemed he had made a difficult decision. Ma Qianba was naturally angry. He narrowed his eyes and gritted his teeth, "Qian Sai, you're very bold." Standing behind Luo Lan, he could only silently lower his head, embarrassed. Luo Lan laughed and praised, "Qian Sai is a smart person, knowing that following a deputy leader won't lead to anything." Luo Lan's eyes darkened slightly, still keeping a firm attitude, and turned to ask the others, "What about you guys?" The soldiers began to look at each other, they pondered for a moment, and all began to move towards the new captain. Only sadly leaving a, "Brother Ma, I'm sorry." This scene drove Ma Qianba crazy. He clenched his fists, trembling slightly. Deputy Captain Ma lowered his head slightly, with a bitter smile, "Good, very good, Luo Lan." Then Captain Luo, he glared challengingly, "Luo Lan, we'll see." After saying that, Ma Qianba straightened his back and left. Luo Lan glanced after him, a winner's smile on his lips. "You couldn't help but sigh, I didn't expect you to offend someone as soon as you arrived. No wonder the young lady instructed me so carefully." Luo Lan raised his eyebrows in confusion, "What did she instruct you?" Yu smiled playfully and raised her hand in a fighting gesture, "The young lady told me to protect you well, not to let you lose a single hair." This sentence surprised him, "You protect me?" Seeming not to believe it much, Yu didn't explain much, only said meaningfully, "Don't underestimate me, you'll know later." Qian Sai on the side suddenly spoke with some worry, "Captain, is..." Qian Sai and his teammates politely raised their hands, "From now on, we brothers will rely on you." Luo Lan smiled with satisfaction, "Don't worry, since you guys are so sensible, I'll protect you." Qian Sai carefully reminded, "Captain, you have to be careful of Deputy Captain Ma." Luo Lan replied, "You must know a lot about him, tell me about it." Qian Sai immediately reported, "Deputy Captain Ma's backing is our Inspection Bureau's Deputy Director, He Sen." "What is the background of this He Sen?" He Sen is the second oldest of the He brothers in Huishan Street. Among the 3 brothers, the eldest, He Long, is the leader of the Huolong Gang, one of the 3 major gangs in Huishan Street. It is said that the youngest is wandering in the capital. Luo Lan sighed, "Sounds like they have a lot of power." He slightly raised his lips and asked, "Then why do you still want to stand by me, aren't you afraid of death?" Qian Sai sweated and explained, "To be honest, we don't want to either, but..." Dead mosquito. "In any case, we have to find a strong backer. Choosing you is because we feel you have power and can be relied on." Luo Lan found it a bit funny, leaned against the wall and looked at Qian Sai and asked, "I have power. Tell me about it." Qian Sai honestly pointed to the badge on Luo Lan's shoulder, talking about the badge on his shoulder. The previous captain of the first company was He Sen, and later he was promoted to deputy director through various activities. When he was the captain, Ma Qianba was his deputy captain. When he was promoted to deputy director, the position of captain of the first team would definitely be Ma Qianba's. Qiansai shrugged, saying somewhat ironically, but what was the result? It was left vacant for more than half a year. Later, we learned that the Qingxue family gave a heads up, saying to keep this position vacant first. His voice was a bit dissatisfied. This was a position that countless people were fighting for. As a result, the Qingxue family just said one sentence and it was settled. Suddenly, Qiansai leaned forward slightly, his voice changing to a more seductive tone. Doesn't this show your strength? Luo Lan looked at him and smiled lightly. Qiansai affirmed, a place like Huishan Street has always respected strength, so we are not embarrassed to do this. Luo Lan straightened up, looking down at Qiansai with a dangerous look. Can I understand that if one day I fall out of favor, you will betray me? Without hesitation, the little soldier did not evade the question, of course. So I hope you can stand firm. Don't. In another room, there was a person bowing his back, Ma Qianba sweating, his face bowed, showing obvious worry, seemingly afraid of the man in front of him. He didn't show his face, only said in a low voice, don't look so miserable. Deputy Captain Ma narrowed his eyes slightly, saying with some blame, Boss, you promised me that captain position before. The man called Boss glared at Qianba, the other person said with gritted teeth, promised. The boss turned around and now his appearance was clear, a middle-aged male yokai, with pale skin, a large hand with long black nails. This person is Deputy Director Hei Sen of the Huishan Street Inspection Bureau. Boss, frowning, why don't I remember? What did I promise you? The atmosphere in the room became even more tense. Ma Qianba was a bit flustered by Hei Sen's question. He glanced elsewhere, sweat constantly dripping from his forehead. Hei Sen tapped hard on the table a few times. Ma Qianba looked up at Hei Sen. Boss, so that position is just going to be left to that kid. Boss Hei only replied coldly, the Qingxue family has spoken. This matter is irreversible. Deputy Captain Ma lowered his head again, trying to hide his dissatisfied expression. Hei Sen added in a low voice, next, we'll see if we can pull that kid over to our side. Ma Qianba was a bit dissatisfied. We have to recruit him. Lao Hei's eyes became even colder, scolding with some anger, fool. Behind him is the Qingxue family. If we can pull him over to our side, we can rely on the power of the Qingxue family. Ma Qianba reminded, Qingxue and Wei Poju are not on the same side. Hei Sen grinned, of course I know. It seems he already had his own calculations. Lao Hei affirmed, so I must drag him into this struggle. Ma Qianba bowed, I understand. On this side, Jiyu led Luo Lan to an old and dilapidated house. Luo Lan looked at the house with some doubt, asking, is this the house you found for me? Jiyu glanced over and replied, what, not bad, right? Luo Lan didn't complain, only a hint of embarrassment appeared on his face, that's right. Around the old house, there are also a large number of rats freely gnawing. Jiyu playfully shrugged, saying, this is the best house I could find within the price you gave. According to her, in order to satisfy Luo Lan, she ran to several places. Jiyu turned her head and sighed, but a patrol team captain like you is only willing to pay that much rent, it's really incomprehensible. He, the one being talked about, didn't seem to care much. Captain Luo smiled. Said he used to live too hard. Now he has to save money. Before that, Luo Lan took a thick stack of money, plus found a brother. Suggested this person help him. The brother he found was the waiter at the restaurant the other day. He came with Bailing. This person was a bit confused. Specialist Luo, you aren't letting the waiter finish speaking. Luo Lan then said, this is some of my income here. Please exchange it for martial coins for me. Then deposit it into my account in Xianwu country for me. After arranging this, Luo Lan went to a telephone booth. He called the dean, instructed him to deposit the money into this account. The password is my birthday. Use this money to maintain the nursing home. The person called the dean. His face showed obvious worry. Putting his ear to the phone, he asked Luo Lan, where did you go? Why did you leave without saying a word? Do you know how much I worry about you? Luo Lan was sad but still tried to reassure the dean, my situation can't be explained in just a few words. But rest assured, I am very safe. Now I am working for a very big company. That's the remuneration they pay me. The money is very clean. But these words didn't seem to ease the dean's worries at all. She hurriedly asked Luo Lan, we all miss you very much. When can you come back? Luo Lan lowered his face. His face was a bit embarrassed, but then he replied heavily, soon. Then Luo Lan hung up the phone. His lonely figure slowly left the telephone booth. Taking heavy steps back to the present, Luo Lan fell into contemplation, remembering the things just now. Seeing Captain Luo just dazed, Jiyu came in front of him, raising her hand and waving it to signal, hey, what's wrong with you? Luo Lan just brushed it off and gave a smile, nothing. Then he went inside first. Let's go, let's see my new house. At the headquarters of the Secret Service. At this time, a figure with pink hair swept through the night, passing by a wall with the organization's mark. A masked person asked in a low voice, Lan Muyuan, how is your plan progressing? The committee member needs to see results soon. Lan Muyuan stood before the questioning. His face remained unchanged. Responding, rest assured. My plan will have no problems. The mysterious person asked again, his voice impatient, the person you planted. Shouldn't he do something to prove himself? Tell him to find a way to get the city planning map of Qingche City. Then this person smirked, especially the sea defense layout map. This thing is very important for our next action. Lan Muyuan frowned and asked, sea defense map, what do you want to do? The other person only replied coldly, the Yarrow country has caused so many things here before. From the council side, a dignified voice rose next at a brightly lit telephone booth. The male lead's somewhat distraught voice rose, sea defense layout map. Luo Lan clenched his fists, exclaiming with a face full of dissatisfaction, I just arrived. How can I get that thing? Didn't you say that you didn't need to use me for the time being? Lan Muyuan on the other end of the line leisurely put his legs up, swinging, only said indifferently, can't be helped. She emphasized that the committee member doesn't trust my plan very much. I have to take out concrete results to shut them up. Luo Lan was still dissatisfied, planning to retort something, but Lan Muyuan cut him off. She smiled and said, I don't want to hear complaints. All I want is results. You know the consequences of not completing the mission. Hearing this, Lao Lan paused slightly. He could only obediently agree, I know. After speaking, he angrily slammed down the phone. His face could no longer maintain its usual composure. Lao Lan's eyes darkened. His pupils contracted with anger. He Yang loudly cursed, damn it. Inside the phone booth, constantly venting his frustration, his dissatisfaction. Then Lao Lan dejectedly left, muttering, no destruction, no construction. I have to do something. The phone in the booth had been abused to a pitiful, deformed state. Lam Mokvien smiled with satisfaction on the other end. Not caring much about Lao Lan's anger, she smugly said, I won't let you always ride on my head. As she spoke, she stared at the symbol of the Secret Service painted on the wall. The next morning in Deputy Director Haksam's office, he smiled, shaking hands and warmly welcoming the person who had arrived. Lao Lan, we finally meet, please sit down. Lao Lan sat upright, back straight, and respectfully said, Deputy Director, I should have visited you sooner. The Deputy Director sat beside him, smiling and waving his hand, I'm not so particular. This young man is quite good, looks very handsome and polite. The police force should have more young blood like you. Lao Lan was praised and quickly waved his hand, his face a little embarrassed. Deputy Director Haksam, please don't say that. I'm still young so I easily make mistakes. I even had a conflict with Deputy Captain Ma a few days ago. Haksam's face turned serious, really? I also heard about this. Did he give you a hard time? Lao Lan smiled gently, but the smile was full of implications. How could he? Deputy Captain Ma is quite upright. Haksam nodded in satisfaction. That's good. I'll tell him to coordinate work with you in the future. Then he glanced over and said, speaking of which, I have a case I want to assign to you. Lao Lan had no reason to refuse and frankly accepted, just give me the orders. Haksam recounted the situation. According to intelligence, we have identified a location storing smuggled drugs in a warehouse near the River. Haksam's eyes suddenly turned cold, order its destruction. Lao Lan paused slightly at the sudden request, but then he stood up straight, full of energy, placed his hand across his chest and accepted the order, understood. In the room of the number 1 team, Jingu was sitting reading documents, her beautiful face and short dress showing off her slender, smooth legs caused quite a distraction. The soldiers of Team 1 kept staring at her without any restraint. Tian-2 raised an eyebrow, teasingly, this girl has a nice figure. A buzz-cut head guy cleared his throat as a reminder, don't talk nonsense, be careful she hears you. Tian-2 indifferently raised his coffee cup, his eyes still glued to Jingu, it doesn't matter, she's just the captain's little golden-haired kitten. At this moment, Jingu suddenly looked up, startling Tian-2 slightly. She glared at him and asked in a low voice, are you talking about me? Tian-2 was intimidated by this little girl's aura and stammered, I. Jingu's eyes turned into countless sharp arrows, shooting towards the impudent group and reminding them in a heavy voice, keep your mouths shut. A gust of wind blew from nowhere, scattering Tian-2's hair and the coffee vapor on his hand. This feeling was truly chilling. Lao Lan opened the door from outside and stepped in, frowning and ordering, everyone, go on a mission. As soon as Jingu heard this, her expression changed 180 degrees, she jumped up and down with joy, finally, something to do. After speaking, she took Lao Lan's arm and disappeared. Tian-2 was still stunned by the sudden gust of wind and the chilling sensation from just now. Suddenly, the cup in his hand shattered as if cut into pieces and the coffee splattered everywhere. Tian-2 fearfully dropped the cup, pieces falling to the floor. Another soldier exclaimed, wow, this girl is really something. The soldiers started clamoring, let's go quickly, don't keep the captain waiting, you're doomed, just pray for yourself later. Tian Tu silently looked down at the clothes that had been wet with coffee. This time, it's too embarrassing.